Alrighty, welcome back everybody to our latest Hurricane Beryl update. As Hurricane Beryl continues to literally barrel across the Caribbean Sea, it is continuing to bring impacts to areas like the Dominican Republic and Haiti. And as we go into tomorrow, Jamaica is going to get a potential direct landfall from this massive hurricane and a major hurricane that is currently ongoing just to the east-southeast of Jamaica. So in this live stream, we're going to basically be going over, will this impact the United States? Who will it impact if it does impact the United States, and how will it do so? We're also going to talk about how this will directly impact Jamaica tomorrow, as a landfall does appear likely in Jamaica as we go throughout the day tomorrow as a strong Category 3 or Category 4 hurricane. Now, in addition to this, it'll be impacting the Yucatan Peninsula, so there are a lot of areas that'll see impacts out of this particular hurricane. But as of right now, this is what Hurricane Beryl looks like on the infrared imagery, and you might be thinking, this does not look like anything like what we saw yesterday. Well, one thing that's interesting here over the last few hours is that it's again undergoing an eye wall replacement. We saw this before it made landfall over in Carriacou the other night, and it's still doing this. It's actually doing it again right now, and that's why you really cannot see the eye right now. But here's what it has looked like over the last few days, just for reference. We're going to go from beginning to end here over the last several days. So again, notice this is when it was a Category 5 hurricane near Carriacou yesterday. So this was just yesterday afternoon. It looked like a major hurricane. This is when it was a Category 5 west of Carriacou. And then eventually, as it moved to the west, it still looked really organized last night. I mean, this hurricane has just looked unbelievable for the last 24 to 48 hours. And as it continues to barrel to the west overnight last night and into this morning, it has continued to look really organized, but we have started to see at least some disorganization. Look at that little opening on the left side, just to the left of the eye and the left of the eye wall. That is actually wind shear that is ripping into part of the storm, and that is actually why we've been seeing at least a small weakening trend. In addition to this, though, that wind shear has not done a whole lot. It's only around 20 to 30 knots of wind shear, and in this particular environment where we have a hurricane this strong, that usually doesn't do enough to weaken a hurricane like this. So it's overall still pretty intense. The eye obviously looks a lot more disorganized over the last few hours. It's not looked as impressive, but it's because it's undergoing an eye wall replacement, and as this moves to the west, we could see this intensify just a little bit more before it will likely start to weaken more as it moves towards Jamaica. For the time being, as of 8 o'clock tonight, this is still a Category 4 hurricane with sustained winds at about 150 miles per hour, and wind gusts are up to 190 miles per hour. So this is still a ripper of a hurricane right now in the Caribbean Sea. The pressure is at 943 millibars. The lowest pressure that we've had thus far was down near 934 millibars, which is back over here when our maximum sustained wind was almost 170 miles per hour. So it has, at one point at least, been a very intense hurricane, and it still is, but it's weakened just a little bit here over the last 6 to 12 hours. So that's good news, but I don't think we're done yet when it comes to this being a major storm, because this thing, even if it weakens, it's still going to be a major hurricane as it approaches areas like Jamaica. Now, as we go later into tonight, we're going to have another National Hurricane Center update right at 11 o'clock. That is their big update. That's currently approximately an hour and a half away, so we're about 90 minutes or so away from that. We should still be live for that, so we'll give you an update when that comes out. It is expected to be downgraded a little bit by overnight tonight and early tomorrow morning to a still a middle ground Category 4 hurricane. By the time we go into tomorrow afternoon, this is expected to make a close appearance, if not landfall, over Jamaica as a Category 3 hurricane or a low-end Category 4 hurricane. It could be either or. Nonetheless, even if it is a Category 3 hurricane, we are still looking at significant storm surge, which will be life-threatening, very high winds, especially for Jamaica, with hurricane force winds being a possibility, and we also could see some flooding across Jamaica. So there's a lot of impacts that'll be felt as we go into tomorrow. So obviously, if you are in Jamaica right now, you got to make sure that you're prepared now and not tomorrow, because this stuff will already be happening by the time you wake up tomorrow morning. Those impacts will be felt as we go into the later morning tomorrow. Now, eventually, as we go later into the week, we're eventually going to see this make a close appearance near the Cayman Islands, near Georgetown, as likely either a low-end Category 3 or a Category 2 hurricane. After that it's going to continue to move towards the Yucatan Peninsula. It'll probably continue to weaken as it's going to enter more of a sheared environment with some drier air, so that shear should kind of rip this storm apart a little bit as it approaches the Yucatan Peninsula. Now, after that, things become really uncertain. There are some computer models that are still showing this going towards Louisiana Louisiana. There are also some that still show this going towards Texas, and some that show this crashing into Mexico. So which one is going to happen? Well, I'm going to explain what I think will happen here in just a second, but I do want to point out that the National Hurricane Center forecast is that as of now, it is expected to be a tropical storm as it moves into the southwestern Gulf of Mexico, and then from there, what happens? Well, I think there's a lot of scenarios that could go down, and I think there's one that I'm going to show out to you that actually I think will happen. Now, before we do that, I do want to show you quickly the future radar with the HWRF model. This is one model that you'll kind of see that will give you an indication of what the track will be with this particular hurricane. So tonight, obviously, it is still a Category 4 hurricane. There apparently have been observed winds in the hurricane near Category 5 strength as of moments ago. So this could get upgraded again to a brief Category 5 at the 11 p.m. update. It is possible. So this could actually get upgraded, but we'll see. Once we go later into tonight into tomorrow morning, this moves towards areas like Jamaica. Just notice how pronounced the eye is. That right there is going to be moving right towards the island of Jamaica as we go into early tomorrow morning. The outer bands will start hitting Jamaica sometime tomorrow morning with some showers, possibly even some thunderstorms, and also the potential for some flooding rains will begin to increase throughout the mid to late morning. So notice how close the eye comes on the HWRF model. This means that the eye wall is going to be going right into the south side and also the downtown area of Kingston and Morant Bay, meaning that those areas are going to get hurricane force winds in this particular scenario, and as well as some really life-threatening storm surge right along the immediate coastline. Then once we go later into the afternoon by 4 o'clock, this will be making a south approach towards Alligator Pond. It will likely make landfall in Jamaica. I do think it's going to make landfall in Jamaica tomorrow, and then eventually as we go into the overnight hours, this will start to weaken as it approaches the Cayman Islands, but even then, it is still expected to be a pretty potent hurricane, producing some life-threatening impacts to the Cayman Islands as well, with more storm surge. In addition to that, very high winds that could be hurricane-force winds, and then also the potential for flooding rains. And after that, this moves towards the Yucatan Peninsula as we go into Friday morning. This is currently likely to make landfall near Cancun, or maybe just south of Cancun. And then it will start to weaken as it goes into the Gulf, but we could see this rapidly intensify as we go into Saturday morning in the southwestern Gulf of Mexico. Again, rapid intensification at this point in the Gulf is very uncertain, but it is something that could happen. Once we go later into the afternoon, Saturday into Sunday, the HWRF model has this as a hurricane in parts of the western Gulf, and then eventually makes it having landfall somewhere south of Houston as we go into late Sunday night or early Monday. That's just one of many scenarios, but this is one scenario that I do think has a higher likelihood of happening at this point. Now, as I've mentioned before, there's a lot of things that could happen, and I'm going to kind of go over some of those scenarios for you and give you an idea of what the uncertainty still is. So this is what it looks like on the infrared imagery we just showed you. That's a widespread view right now of Hurricane Beryl. Obviously, this is huge. It is about the size of Florida. That is how large this hurricane is. It is a massive storm in the eastern Caribbean Sea. Now, over the next few days, we're going to continue to see this again go through Jamaica and the Yucatan. This is what it looks like on a closer view of the infrared imagery. You can kind of see that eye wall replacement attempt happening. Again, this could be near Category 5 strength still. The sustained winds are at 150 miles per hour. Big thunderstorms still exploding around this, so it is still an intense hurricane, but I do think the wind shear is feeding into this just a little bit, and that should be enough to give it at least a little bit of a nudge down in terms of the wind speeds at some point, hopefully tomorrow. This is the official track from the National Hurricane Center. I just showed you this, but I'm going to show you it in this form as well. Again, pressure right now is down to about 945 millibars. And over the next few days, again, Jamaica in the direct path of this. It is expected to make hurricane impacts to Jamaica as early tomorrow morning, so be prepared if you're in Jamaica or the Cayman Islands. There are hurricane warnings in effect for both of those areas. We still have tropical storm warnings in effect for southern Dominican Republic and the south side of Haiti, where there's been some storm surge, there have been a little bit of flooding rains, and there's also some tropical storm force winds. But aside from that, the hurricane force wind field is not reaching that. Notice how small, by the way, the hurricane force wind field is. It is puny. So compared to the size of Jamaica, if this goes right over Jamaica, this is actually going to probably cause hurricane force winds across the entire island. Now, if it stays south of it, those winds might just be slightly offshore. Either way, significant impacts are still expected. Now, hurricane watches are in effect right now for the Yucatan Peninsula, and then once we go closer to Texas, that is where uncertainty still resides. And then this is the spaghetti models, all right? Excuse me 1 second. All right, so this is the spaghetti models, and again, this is all the different scenarios that we could see with Hurricane Beryl. And at this point, this is a big change from yesterday. We had a live stream talking about Beryl a few days ago, kind of give you an idea of what this might do. We had a video this morning too, and if you're new to the channel, by the way, make sure you're subscribed. We're going to continue to post updates about Hurricane Beryl over the next several days. But one thing I did want to point out is that Beryl's track has actually been shifting further to the north. So the spaghetti models have actually been shifting further to north. Basically, every single computer model to this point was down here somewhere, back over near the Yucatan, eventually going into Mexico. All the models, for the most part, have shifted further north, and it looks more likely than not we're going to see a landfall somewhere in northern Mexico or in South Texas. Now, with that said, I still wouldn't be surprised if we continue to see this shift further to the north over the next 24 to 48 hours. It's really going to depend on the intensity and the location of this ridge that is going to be over Florida. That's going to steer this to wherever it wants it to go. So this could go towards Louisiana still. That's not impossible. I know it doesn't show that on here, but it is still a possibility that we could see this go towards Louisiana. I personally think that this hurricane will be making landfall somewhere along the Texas coast, probably near Houston, but possibly also back down near Galveston. Regardless of that, that's just my thinking. That's my forecast. I've been kind of on that forecast now for like 2 days now. I feel like this is going to make a landfall in Texas. With that said, the intensity will probably be again, it could be anything. It could be from a tropical storm up to a category 3 or 4 hurricane, depending on if rapid intensification does happen in the Gulf of Mexico. Now, most computer models have this between Galveston and back into northern Mexico. So overall, there's still most computer models showing that, but I still think this could shift further north and east over the next few days. Here are some of the ensembles on the most recent run. So again, notice the bullseye where all the ensembles are kind of in the middle are basically in South Texas, so that's where it's more likely than not to make landfall. One thing I want to point out is that a couple of models bring this towards Louisiana, and if that does happen, rapid intensification would be way more likely. So we have to watch that very, very closely. Here are the other ensembles. This is actually not updated, but there are some ensembles on here, again, giving you a wide variety of things that could happen as this continues to move into the Gulf of Mexico by Friday and as well as into Saturday. Now, the intensity of this hurricane will vary. A lot of computer models still showing this on a weakening trend, which every model shows this weakening beyond now. So by the time 3 days from now, once this makes landfall in the Yucatan, it should be a category 1 hurricane, maybe a category 2, or it'll be a tropical storm. Then after that, that's where things are uncertain. We could see rapid intensification in the Gulf of Mexico as this goes towards either Texas or Louisiana if that happens. Now, if this goes directly into Mexico for a second landfall there, then I think that overall we'll probably see one of these solutions pan out where it's just a tropical storm. But I think if this does go towards Texas or it goes towards Louisiana, it is way more likely that this will re-intensify into a hurricane more than anything. Will it undergo more rapid intensification like it did before it made landfall in Carriacou the other day? It might, but it's not certain. It's not as certain as what we've had over the last, at least it's not as certain as what it was before it made landfall in Carriacou. We thought it was going to rapidly intensify near Carriacou. This is more uncertain, at least for those in Texas and as well as Louisiana. So this could intensify into a more intense hurricane. It also might not. So that's kind of the latest there. Now, I'm going to go through 3 different computer models. We're going to do the Icon model, the GFS model, and as well as the European model, and give you an idea of the different scenarios. Again, there's a lot of scenarios. There's nothing set in stone about a landfall yet, at least for the United States or Mexico. The Yucatan Peninsula, almost a guarantee. Elsewhere, though, past that is very uncertain for the Gulf Coast. So here's the Icon model over the next few days. Let me just put this more into full perspective here. There we go. So this is the Icon model. So again, landfall in Jamaica is what the Icon model thinks as we go into tomorrow. Eventually by Thursday and Friday, this makes landfall in the Yucatan. By Saturday, this moves into the Gulf of Mexico. And then by Sunday, this starts to steer up to the north towards Texas. You'll see that in a more close view here. The Icon model is one of the few computer models that has this rapidly intensifying south of Houston. Again, it's one scenario. It's not set in stone, but this is a possibility. I would say if you're in Louisiana or Texas, just make sure you at least have some of the bare necessities ready to go, at least have some sort of plan ready, just in case we do end up seeing this going towards those areas. It's not a guarantee, I said like 9 times, but it is something that we have to watch for. It's a chance. It's like a 40 to 50% chance that we see this go towards either Texas or Louisiana. And then another model, this is the European model. It shows a bit more of a more conservative approach. It moves it through the southwestern Gulf of Mexico. That's right there on Saturday. And then by Sunday into Monday, it just kind of sits there in the southwest Gulf, doesn't really move. And that would end up bringing flooding rains to Mexico for both Sunday and Monday and makes landfall south of Texas. Again, that is another scenario. The GFS model does similar stuff, but brings it a bit further up to the north and also intensifies this a bit further. So this is by Sunday. Notice the hurricane, again, making landfall between Texas and as well as Mexico, and we could end up seeing this hurricane make landfall there, where there could also be some impacts. Now, again, which scenario do I think will happen? I think it's going to be something between the GFS and the Icon model. And I kind of alluded to this before, but this is, I think, one of the more reliable solutions at this point to what I think will happen. Now, again, it's just one model. There could be changes along the next few days that change this entirely, but I do think more than likely this is going to make landfall somewhere in Texas. Where, we don't really know, and also the National Hurricane Center still has the cone over here. So for at least right now, at least Houston is not right now in the cone, but we could see this turn off to the north depending on how strong this ridge is. I've honestly personally been with all, not like, 100% guaranteeing it, but I've been like this entire time thinking that this could go towards Texas with this ridge. I just think it's going to happen. We've seen hurricanes like this before. I think it will probably go towards Texas to some extent. It might not hit Texas directly. Like, we could see a landfall down here in Mexico, which would be probably a less bad thing to happen, because if this does move to the north, there's more of a chance it could rapidly intensify here in the western Gulf of Mexico. All right, so there's a few scenarios that could happen here, but I do think personally, I'm giving it again, this is just a personal forecast. I'm giving it about a 60 to 70% chance that we do see a landfall in Texas. I would give it like a 5 to 10% chance in Louisiana. I just don't see it happening, because again, we would need this hurricane to literally go out here to have that happen, or it would have to like bow like this, which would be crazy. And about a 20 to 30% chance it makes a landfall in Mexico. Obviously, that's just my forecast. For the time being, the cone of uncertainty is including Mexico and Texas, and that's where the eye is currently forecasted to go. We are going to have a National Hurricane Center update at 11 p.m., which is in about an hour from now. So just about an hour from now in Eastern time. Until that happens. And we will see if there's any sort of changes to the forecast in terms of the cone of uncertainty, and if there's any change to the intensity as well, because there could be some changes between now and then. So that's my forecast. Obviously, again, it's just my forecast. All right, this is not the official forecast I just said about if it's gonna make landfall in Texas. All right, the chance is there. It's not a high chance, but I think it is. That's at least my thinking right now. I've covered hurricanes for 4 or 5 years now with in-depth dives like this, and a lot of the time it's usually on track for something like that. Like a lot of the time I have been a little bit more on the right side of things than wrong. So we'll see. Again, it's a pretty broad overview of where this can make landfall, but I do think more than anything this will probably go towards Texas. What impacts can be felt in Texas? That stuff is uncertain. Like intensity, the track is still very uncertain, but the intensity and what impacts are really uncertain still. I think more than anything, it's going to be more of flooding rains, because I think this is going to slow down if it does go towards Texas. So I think the flooding concern will grow for South Texas if this does make landfall in Texas. Now, again, if this goes towards Mexico and slows down like the European model hinted at, we could also see flooding in Mexico and not really anything in Texas. If this goes towards Louisiana, we could see this as a much stronger hurricane again, similar to what it is now, or maybe a little bit lower than that. So that's another possibility as well. Storm surge, though, does look to be pretty likely, at least for parts of either Mexico or Texas, probably between here. We'll at least have some level of storm surge, I think. So overall, that's my forecast. Again, you can agree or disagree, but that's what I'm thinking, at least at this point, in terms of what to expect. Obviously, Hurricane Beryl is still a very intense hurricane. More concerningly, this is going to be making landfall, or at least a very close appearance to Jamaica tomorrow. If you know any friends or family in Jamaica, just make sure they're ready to ride out this hurricane, and hopefully they are good to go. Preparations are all in place, emergency kits on hand, all that sort of stuff. And if you are in Jamaica right now, please make sure that stuff is ready to go. But because by tomorrow morning, this hurricane is going to be making an approach to Jamaica, and impacts will start to be felt by tomorrow morning. All right. Now, with everything I've just said, I just want to let you know there's no reason to panic. There's no reason to be scared if you're in Texas or Louisiana or even in Mexico. Just be ready for this. That's all I'm saying. You don't have to go out to the stores, panic buy. You don't have to buy 25 gallons of milk. All right. This is not that kind of situation right now. I'm just telling you, there is a chance that this goes towards Texas and Louisiana. There could be impacts What those impacts are still very uncertain. We could see significant storm surge. We also might not see a whole lot of storm surge. It just depends on a lot of factors. And I think after tomorrow night, we will have a much better idea of where this hurricane goes. Because right now, it is currently in a stage where it's trying to do another eye wall replacement, and it's in the middle of the Caribbean Sea. It might make landfall in Jamaica, and if it does, it could weaken a bit more than currently forecasted, which is another possibility. But beyond that, it could wobble a little bit here in this cone, and that could change the track and trajectory a lot. So there's a lot of scenarios that could still go down, which is why I'm saying there's no reason to panic. Things could change. Just make sure that you are being prepared, make sure that you are aware of this hurricane, and just be ready to go. All right, that's what I'm saying. But Jamaica, be ready. Jamaica is really the one location right now that needs to be ready. You have to be already prepared. Hopefully you're prepared today, but you have to be ready. If you're back over in the Yucatan Peninsula, also you should be ready for this, because you are going to get some hurricane force winds and probably some significant storm surge. At least up here near Cancun is more likely to see that significant storm surge. I would say back over here, like south of Tulum, depending on the track of this, like Belize City, we're probably not going to get a whole lot of storm surge down here. As the hurricane, if it does make landfall, let's say right here, the storm surge would be the most significant on the northern side of this eye. So that's what I'm thinking, at least as of right now, in terms of the intensity and track. And I will be answering questions. So if you have any questions, feel free to leave those in the chat. And we're just going to be kind of waiting at this point for the 11 p.m. update from the National Hurricane Center, which is an hour from now. But I will be answering questions throughout the stream. So if you have questions, please leave them in the chat, and I'll definitely answer them. Thank you, by the way, Manjin and Annie, for becoming members, and welcome to the Velocities. And also thank you, Spade, for the super chat. Appreciate that. What are the water temperatures off the coast of Texas and the Gulf? Let me pull that up for you. It's actually kind of crazy how warm it is right now. And I talked about this in our last hurricane live stream that we had. The temperatures are just off the charts in the both Caribbean Sea and just in the Atlantic Ocean in general. And that's why we have this right now. I mean, these ocean temperatures are just absurd. Like, these temperatures that we have right now are temperatures that we usually see in the month of, like, very late August or September. Every single water temperature right now across the board, across a large chunk of both the Caribbean, the Southwestern Gulf, and the Gulf of Mexico are in the 80s by a long stretch too. The Gulf of Mexico is very favorable still. We could see rapid intensification because look at these water temperatures. They're all in the mid to upper 80s. As a reminder, you only need temperatures above 80 degrees for there to be some sort of hurricane, or at least some sort of organized hurricane potential development. So we are well above that threshold. So it is very hot right now. And again, you can blame it on whatever you would like, but yeah, it's definitely significant. By the way, we have a damaging wind event up to 90 miles per hour was just reported near Unity Village in Kansas, or in Missouri. It's a destructive storm right now just to the south and east of Kansas City. Just had a big surge of wind there. Please stay away from windows if you're in that warning. I did not realize we actually had... I'm kind of surprised we had an intensification here, because I thought the severe weather threat might die down a bit. But stay away from windows, dude. You know what to do. It's an extremely dangerous situation. Severe thunderstorm warning just east of Kansas City. All right, let's go back to this. By the way, I do want to show you real quick. This is the satellite imagery. We don't have a fantastic view of it recently because the sun is set, but I just want to show you this real quick, the evolution of this. Let's give it 1 second to load. This is what it looked like. This is Hurricane Beryl on the satellite imagery over time. So again, it's kind of lost its organization a little bit here recently. With that said, it's still a very intense hurricane, but you can just see the eye and how clear it was earlier in the day today. Let's go back to that right here. You can just see through the eye. It's quite literally unbelievable. Again, just an unbelievable hurricane. This is, again, historic by a lot of records. Let me pull up, give me 1 second. Let me pull this up real quick. So this is all of the records that have been broken. This is from James Pettis. He made this graphic. This is an updated hurricane records list of every single record, at least from what we know, that has been broken. This is the earliest Category 5 hurricane on record. It is the first system on record to undergo rapid intensification in the main development region in the Atlantic in the month of June. We've never had that happen before, which is back over, by the way, east of the Lesser Antilles. The strongest June hurricane as measured by wind speed, surpassing Hurricane Audrey of 1957. Again, for the month of June. The second ever Category 5 hurricane to occur in the month of July, and the second to Hurricane Emily, which happened in 2005. So that's another record. Earliest Category 4 hurricane on record in the Basin, surpassing the previous record set July 8th of 2005 by Hurricane Dennis. That is now 5 records. We basically have a dozen records. Third earliest Atlantic major hurricane on record. Its Grenada landfall was the earliest landfall by a major hurricane, surpassing the July 5th landfall in 1916 along the Gulf Coast hurricane in the Pascagoula, Mississippi area. Again, another record. Easternmost Atlantic hurricane to form, which was on the 49.3 degree west line, blasting the mark set by the 1933 Trinidad hurricane, which was 58.9 degrees. That is a 10-degree difference on the longitude lines. That's unbelievable. Or latitude lines. I think is a latitude. Is latitude north to south? I always get that mixed up. Whichever one it is, that's unbelievable. That's a 10-degree difference, which is a huge difference. The third earliest Atlantic major hurricane on record, its Grenada landfall. Oh, we already said that. Never mind. We said those two. Strongest known hurricane to pass through the Grenadines, and also the fastest moving Category 5 hurricane on record, surpassing the previous record. 1969 was Hurricane Camille. It's been moving at about 20 to 22 miles per hour east to west, so it's been a very fast moving hurricane. And then the strongest July hurricane on record, surpassing the most previous record set in 2005 by Hurricane Emily. Again, James Pettis, credit to him on Twitter. That's all of the records that have been set by this hurricane. So, yeah, it's absolutely bonkers how many records we've had broken. But as a reminder, make sure you subscribe to the channel. We'll continue to post more updates, obviously, on Hurricane Beryl over the next several days as this continues to get closer to the Yucatan, Jamaica, and also potentially the United States. We are going to continue to answer questions, so if you have questions, leave those in the chat. I'll try to answer some. And the next National Hurricane Center update, which could change the cone of uncertainty and intensity guide, will be at 11 o'clock Eastern Time. Is it longitude? Okay. Latitude is... Okay, gotcha. Yeah, it's longitude. Now, I had a test question on that last year, and I think I got it right, but man, like I have a process to remembering stuff like that. Like, that is just one of the hardest things to actually remember for some reason. I don't know why. It's like the same word, basically. Do you think it's a Category 5? Well, let's check out some of the plane data. We can go to Tropical Hurricane Hunters. We got, as of 4 minutes ago, some data. Let's check it out. The Hurricane Hunter is actually flying in as we speak. Like, literally, the plane is going in as we speak. That's the plane. This is as of 4 minutes ago. This is legitimately moving in right now. So, we're going to have some updates here in a second. But the highest wind, at least observed thus far as it's moving in, is 101, I think I just saw. Yeah, 101 knots. Which, 101 knots... 2 miles per hour is 116 miles per hour. So, yeah. These also happened. This was as of... Let's see the difference on this. So this was about 2 hours ago. We still had winds upwards of 140 knots, which would still be a pretty high-end Category 4. But again, this is the airplane in real time. Like, this is as of 5 minutes ago. So it's not live, but it's very close to being live. It is flying into this hurricane right now. And so we will get another update here in a second, probably on the wind speeds and stuff. But all the weird lines that you're seeing, those are all wind barbs, basically measuring the wind inside this hurricane. Somebody asked in chat, where should people go where should people in the path of the hurricane go? Well, during a hurricane, it is a very tough situation because you have multiple things that are happening. You have storm surge along the coastline, and this is mainly for Jamaica right now because Jamaica is going to be hit by this tomorrow. So if you're in Jamaica and listening to this, this is what I'm going to kind of tell you here. So hurricanes in general obviously have many threats, including flooding. They also have extreme storm surge. And they also have high winds that can be destructive. And we saw that happen in Karakou where there were literal buildings that were destroyed. Let me just quickly, by the way, take this off so I don't have to have that on screen for the second, or at least for this second. But what I'm saying here is that there are many threats. It's basically like having a flood emergency and a tornado at the same time. Basically, that's kind of what it is. So what you want to do is then when you're in a hurricane, or whenever you are, you know, being hit by this hurricane, you need to be watching the weather obviously very closely. You want to go to the highest floor possible when there's flooding, rains, and or storm surge. Obviously you do not want to be on the beach. You need to make sure that you are taking evacuation orders seriously if you're in Jamaica, as there are, again, hurricane warnings. But in Jamaica in particular, or really any other island here that gets hit by this, if there is flooding, you need to go to a higher floor. If there are high winds, you need to try to stay away from windows and hopefully in an interior room. And if you don't have that, just try to find something that can protect you, because there could be flying debris tomorrow in Jamaica from this hurricane. Because this inner eye wall that we have, this is where the highest of the winds are. It is going to be all wrapped in here, right? All this convection up here, there's going to be some tropical storm force winds, especially back up in areas like, you know, Dominican Republic or Haiti. But the worst of it is going to be right in here. It's going to be in the eye wall. So you need to make sure that you're at least staying away from windows and on the highest floor possible. I know it sounds weird, but that's what you're supposed to be doing. Unless there's no flooding, right? If there's no flooding, or if you're not near the beach and there's no storm surge, you're fine to stay on the lower floor in an interior room. Just stay vigilant, because you know hurricanes are dangerous, right? We've seen it time and time again over the last several years. You just need to make sure that you're staying vigilant. That's the biggest thing. Just stay aware. Know your solutions, your whatever it might be, your plan at least. Just have that ready to go for tomorrow if you're in Jamaica. If you're back over in the Yucatan, if you're back over in Texas, or really, I would say, first off, if you're in the Yucatan, you need to be getting prepared now, because this hurricane will be barreling towards you, and it's likely to still be a hurricane. It won't be as strong as what it is now, but it will be still a hurricane. And then once it goes towards either Texas, Mexico, or Louisiana, it will probably bring some impacts like what we're seeing maybe now, or something maybe tomorrow. Like, we might see something similar, depending on what happens. For the time being, this is forecasted to be a tropical storm in the Gulf, but again, that could change depending on where this goes. If it goes further north, it could be a hurricane, maybe even stronger hurricane, or it could just be a weak tropical storm if it goes on the much southern line of this cone of uncertainty. So again, there are a lot of different scenarios that could happen, but most important thing really is make sure that you have some plan in place if you are in Jamaica or even in the Yucatan Peninsula. That's really what you need to make sure that you're doing right now. Should I leave Cancun? I mean, you don't really have to leave it. If you have a place that is safe, you don't have to necessarily leave Cancun. If you have evacuation orders, you really should go buy those. You don't have to, though. If I were you, if you can leave somehow, I don't know how you leave Cancun unless you're going on plane. I mean, you can if you feel safer that way. It's not going to be as intense of a hurricane, at least we think at this point, if it makes landfall in Cancun or near Cancun. But there will still be high winds. There will be storm surge along the coast, which if this hurricane makes landfall right here, let's say, let me just make an L so it makes more sense. If the hurricane makes landfall just south of Cancun, the worst of the storm surge is going to go into Cancun with those counterclockwise winds. And that's what's going to drive all that storm surge there. And we're probably actually going to see water recede down here if that makes landfall there. A lot of that actually happened with Hurricane Ian, believe it or not. Tampa, like the whole bay got drained out from the hurricane. So we could see something like that here too. But if you're in Cancun, you need to be at least expecting wind gusts that could be up to 110, 115 miles per hour. It's forecasted at 105, but if something changes, if it stays a bit more intense, then that could be eventually actually a higher number as it gets closer. It might be a bit stronger. But I'll be expecting some flooding rains, storm surge, and high wind gusts. But again, it's one of those situations that it's kind of your call. It's not like a mandatory thing unless you're in an evacuation order. It's a little bit different if you're in an evacuation order. So that's what I'm thinking, at least. What's the eye wall doing? Is it weakening? The eye wall isn't really weakening, actually. It's been undergoing an eye wall replacement. But one thing that we are noticing is that the eye is not symmetrical at all anymore. It's just a tiny little eye. Doesn't mean it's weakened entirely, but it is definitely getting a little bit weaker. Now, could it re-intensify? It could. But for the time being, it is at least looking a little bit weaker as it moves to the west-northwest. This is expected, by the way. It is expected to weaken some, but this could just be, again, a full-blown eye wall replacement that we're seeing in real time that could be a bit more intense. Now, again, we have hurricane hunters that are going right through the hurricane as we speak. This is a plane that is flying right through the hurricane. And as of right now, wind at 49 UTC, which is actually moments ago, was measured at 133 knots. Now, most recently, in the last hour, or even the last 30 minutes, this has been measured at around 132 by the looks of it. Let's see, 132, I think is the highest now. So we still have very strong winds. And if we do 132 knots to miles per hour, this is still at 150 mile per hour winds inside of the eye. So even though the eye is dissipating, like it just looks really unorganized, the winds are still at a very high end category 4, at least from what we're seeing right now. Now, granted, the next outlook from the National Hurricane Center, it's in about 50 minutes or so, give or take a little bit of time. They are sometimes early on that. This is probably at least still going to be a high-end Category 4. I wouldn't be surprised, though, if it did get downgraded to 145 mile per hour winds, because it might be weakening just a tad. And again, this is at flight level. So the winds that we're seeing on here, those are flight level winds and not surface-based winds. So those are a little bit off the ground. Regardless of that, though, this is definitely still an extreme hurricane, and it's not going to weaken much up until Jamaica. It will weaken a bit, but I mean, even this, I don't know if it'll weaken that by that much. It might still be at 130, 135 mile per hour winds as a low-end Category 4 once it approaches areas like Jamaica. So that's what at least I'm thinking right now. But yeah, Category 5 again, just wait till 11. It could be. Again, it's not impossible. I mean, we had some wind measured close to 155, 160, but I don't think it'll jump that high. Personally, I think it'll stay in the Category 4 spectrum. I don't think it's increased in intensity by that much, in my opinion. All right. If you have any questions, feel free to leave those in the chat. I'll be answering questions here throughout the live stream. What's the purpose of flying through a Category 4 hurricane? Well, the reason why they're flying through this is to gather data. That's literally the reason. If we didn't have hurricane hunters out there, we wouldn't know really what the intensity of a hurricane is. Like, if you look at this on any sort of map, let's say, without any data at all, what kind of hurricane do you think this is? I mean, like, the eye doesn't look impressive at all. It's really shrunk tremendously. I mean, we've seen really definitive eyes on Category 3 hurricanes, and we've also seen eyes that have looked insane at Category 5 level. You know, it's something that you really cannot determine the intensity of unless you have something that's measuring data. This is in the middle of the Caribbean Sea, so we don't really know what the intensity is unless somebody actually flies in here. But, like, the eye right now it's almost non-existent. It's like 4 miles wide, and even then it's not even really organized. But the eye wall is still producing winds that are approximately around 145 to 150 miles per hour. So, I was going to take off the hurricane data, but where is it? Yeah, if we didn't have something gathering data, we would have absolutely, like, no clue what's happening. It could be weak, it could be strong. Obviously, it appears still strong, but if I were to guess what the intensity is just off the infrared imagery, I would say this is like a Cat 3 maybe a low-end Cat 4. But based off the winds, this is not that low, so. Hey, you, Joab for the 199. Is Puerto Rico good? Yeah, you're good. You're already out of the way of this. The only thing that's happening there was rain today, but Puerto Rico is good. Thank you, Dorothy, for becoming a member, and welcome to the Velocities. Yeah, the only areas that are currently seeing impacts are the Dominican Republic and Haiti, and then tomorrow, Jamaica. And then after that, tomorrow night into Thursday will be the Cayman Islands. And then by Friday, this will be making landfall in the Yucatan Peninsula. Now, the schedule is for us here on this channel is that we might be live for the landfall in Jamaica tomorrow. I'm not sure yet. So obviously, if you're new to the channel, subscribe down below. If we're not live tomorrow for the landfall, then I'll at least have a video tomorrow morning with a full-blown update. So you know what's happening and what the latest is for landfall potential in the United States. Thursday, I will probably have a video. I won't be live at all. Friday is a 50-50 right now. I don't think I'll be live for Mexico landfall, but I should at least have a video on Friday, I think. And we might go live Friday night for an update on Hurricane Beryl. If it is still a hurricane, or even if it's not, we'll probably have an update stream for those in the United States, because that's the next area in line. And so that's the current plan. I am going to be away, though, tomorrow night and then through Thursday. Or is that Thursday? Yeah, through Thursday. So I'll be away for a couple days and I'll be back on Friday. There's a reading that tops at 144 knots. Is that recent, though, or was that like over an hour ago? Let me go back to Hurricane Hunters here. There's a couple of planes flying through right now. So we have differing data. Seeing 132. Seeing 133, which that's in knots, by the way. That's not in miles per hour. This is the other hurricane. This is the other hurricane hunter is literally in the middle right now of this hurricane. Like literally in the almost in the eye. The other hurricane hunter is, this is about 2 hours ago. I mean, it was measuring some really high winds here at 144. What was the number you said? I don't know what number you said. I can't remember. But if it was 144, that's that. But that was as of about 2 hours ago now. So as of 2 hours ago, it may have been a brief category 5, but it doesn't appear that way right now from what we're looking at with hurricane hunters. I mean, again, there are 2 aircraft in the hurricane right now that are measuring this data in real time. So I trust that data a lot more than maybe 2 hours ago, because 2 hours ago is 2 hours ago. Most recently, it's different. By the way, this is a 3D view of the hurricane. You wanted to see a crazy view of this. This is what it looks like on a 3D view. Let's go back 200 frames here. It's a track over time. It's pretty crazy to look at this in the 3D sense of things. Thank you, Boop, for the $5 super chat. Literally look like it's midnight in the Kansas City area storms. I will check on those in a second. It should just be mostly wind up to 70 miles per hour. Could North Texas get rain from this? It very well could if it does make a landfall in Texas. I do think there's a good chance it does, but we'll see. I say this is a scary look. It's a much more scary looking at the 3D view of this hurricane. It's kind of crazy. Hey, big brother for the 199. That's just how they do it. I mean, the increments of wind are just for what the category is. There is usually an actual wind speed. Like, it's usually going to be an actual wind speed. For communication purposes, they do it by 5 miles per hour. Because if it's 150, like, this is the thing, right? At least for a lot of us, whenever you see the number 199, you think, wow, that's a lot cheaper, like, as a product. But if it says 200, you think, whoa, that's a lot more. So if it's 199 miles per hour versus 200, you're going to think 200 is 10 times worse than 199. Like, that's the way that at least a lot of America works. A lot of things are priced at $1.99 instead of $2 for that very reason. The number 200 looks way bigger than 199 from our perspective. So just throwing out the facts here. Like, that's one of the reasons why too. Like, literally true. All right, real quickly, back to Kansas City. Still have a destructive severe thunderstorm warning, but that looks like it is going to expire here in a minute. Haven't had any new reports of 80 mile per hour winds. And main concern right now in Missouri and Kansas is damaging winds up to 60. Same thing goes also for Illinois. Mainly a damaging wind threat up to 60 to 70 miles per hour, and Oklahoma. So for those in those states, again, I'm not super concerned about those areas. Just stay weather aware and stay away from windows if you're in any of those warnings. It's literally, yeah, it's a brain trick. That's literally what it is. Thank you, Rubber Duck, for the $4.99. I've looked at it before. I don't really use it though. I've looked at it before though. It's definitely cool to track planes on there. I have family in Havana, Cuba. Are they okay? They should be fine. I mean, there are going to be some outer bands that might reach Havana, but it's not going to be much. Let me show you the future radar real quick on the HWRF. And this is what it looks like as we go into Friday, or late Thursday into Friday. Doesn't even look like the outer bands are going to reach you. But if they do, there could be some gusty winds. That's about it. There probably won't be any storm surge. I mean, it's too far down to the south here for that to happen. But this model does show it going towards Texas. And again, if you want more of a detailed breakdown of what I'm expecting, go to the first like 15 minutes of today's live stream. Just get back to the first minute of this stream, and I went over all the scenarios. So if you're wondering about the scenarios, what the chances of this going to Texas, literally just back forward to the very beginning of this live stream. You can do that. It just click that little slider down below, and I talk all about it. And if you have questions beyond that, let me know. Because I went over scenarios like this, where it could go towards Texas or Louisiana or towards Mexico. At this point, I don't think this is going towards any of these areas. I haven't this entire time, but just letting you know, if you're in Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, or Florida, you might see minor impacts, but nothing major is currently expected. Even for Louisiana and Texas, nothing currently is majorly expected, but that obviously is very well subject to change. Any Big Brother for the 199 big bat supercell tonight? We probably have bats out there, but I'm not going to look right now. If you are curious, by the way, this is what it looks like right now, approximately, on radar. If we had radar view, this would be about what it looks like. This is probably a little bit over the top, though. Let's see what this shows. This shows kind of the same thing. It's probably a little bit over the top on how defined the eye is, but it's pretty similar to what it looks like right now on radar. We don't have a radar out here. Just the nature of the, Caribbean. We just don't have an island at all. Or, like a radar, I mean, at all. So, just letting you know. Yeah, Jamaica is going to take a pretty close to direct hit. If not, you will take a direct hit. I mean, even if it doesn't make landfall in Jamaica, we are still going to see the outer or the inner eye wall, and that's where the worst of the hurricane is going to be. So again, this is the eye, and then this is Jamaica. And so, even if the eye does or doesn't make landfall, it doesn't matter. At this point, it looks like the eye wall will hit the area, which means you are going to get the worst of the wind, which will be hurricane force winds that could be as high as 160 mile per hour wind gusts by tomorrow. In addition to that, you're going to be watching for flooding rainfall and the potential for substantial storm surge, especially on the eastern side of the island. Northern side of the island, there could be storm surge, but I don't think it's going to be as significant, but you should at least see some storm surge. But yeah, that's what I'm thinking as of right now. I don't think they make storm surge maps for these areas, but does anybody know if they make storm surge maps for Jamaica? I don't think they do. If they do, let me know. I'll try to pull it up if they do. I don't think they do, though. I think they only do that for the United States. I've never seen them for those areas. Thank you, Jay, for the $4.99. Flying to Belize City tomorrow. What are the factors that contribute to any north and south wobbles? I mean, it depends on the intensity, and then also it'll depend on the ridge. But more than anything, I think more than likely this is going to make landfall somewhere up in here north of Belize. Even if it went down, let's say to the Katumal area, I think that's how you pronounce it. Even if it made landfall there, the storm surge is not going to be that significant, at least from what I'm thinking here. Because what we're going to have is strong easterly winds on the northern side of a hurricane. Let's say this is the hurricane right here. And then we're going to have westerly winds on the other side, meaning that the water would actually push out. So storm surge would not be as much of an issue for Belize or Belize City. With that said, you could still see some isolated flooding rainfall. You could see some tropical storm force winds. But aside from that, I don't think we're going to see major impacts there. There could be some impacts, but I don't think they'll be major. That's at least what I'm thinking on my forecast. When we'll hit Jamaica, Jamaica's going to start seeing the impacts as early as tomorrow morning. Some of the outer bands will arrive around 7 to 10 a.m. And then eventually by around lunchtime, this will continue to make a very close appearance to Jamaica. And then it will eventually make probably a brief landfall, maybe near Alligator Pond. If not, it might just stay barely to the south. And then after that, it'll move away as we go into the overnight hours. But it'll basically be an all-day event tomorrow, with the worst of it being during the afternoon for Jamaica. So most of the worst of the action basically will be between about probably 2 o'clock or so up until maybe about 8 o'clock. That's going to be the worst of it for tomorrow. Thank you, AJ, for becoming a moderate velocity member, and welcome to the Velocities. What subsection of meteorology do you specialize in? I mean, we usually do severe weather on this channel. I am actually going to be a meteorologist, like a legitimate one. I know a lot of people see people on YouTube and think, oh, this person's a meteorologist. A lot of people aren't. I am actually going to be a meteorologist in a little under a year. So I'm still in college, but I have a lot of experience, at least with severe weather. I've been doing hurricane forecasts like this, though, for 4 to 5 years. So I do have a lot of experience when it comes to hurricanes, too. They just don't happen as frequently. So, we at least don't have as much coverage with it. But for those wondering, I am not a complete fake meteorologist or whatever. Because, I mean, if you look at TikTok, if you're somebody that's on TikTok and you look at the videos on there, you probably are thinking, when you see Category 6 hurricane, this has to be fake, or either you're thinking, wow, this is scary. Category 6 hurricanes don't exist. They never have. They probably never will either. So, I've also seen Category 10 hurricanes being posted on TikTok. That is also not a thing, just letting you know. But there are a lot of people that are kind of like, I wouldn't say wannabes, but they're they're kind of like that on YouTube. I mean, you can do weather as an enthusiast or like an analyst or whatever, but you really need to at least have some sort of experience, because I've heard stuff on other streams that just are not correct at all, like meteorology wise. I'm not saying I'm perfect, but I've heard like people say like things that just don't make sense, like, you know, backing winds versus veering winds. It's something that's in a sounding, so weather data, you know, from the bottom of the ground all the way up into the troposphere, and people flip those all the time when they don't know what they're talking about. So unfortunately, that's a thing that does happen, and that's one of the reasons why weather communication has become more difficult over the last few years. There's a lot of hype casters out there, and I try to avoid that. Obviously, you know, to some extent, you need to make thumbnails clickable, but, you know, I'm putting the information out there that I'm putting out there that I think is going to happen. I'm not going to say, oh, it's definitely going to be a Category 9 hurricane coming to Texas. Like, I'm not saying that, so... Can you explain backing versus veering? Well, backing versus veering in a sounding would basically be if we have ascent or descent. So if we have backing winds, that indicates more of descent, and then ascent would be more when we have veering winds. And so when we have veering winds, that usually will spin up a, depending on how strong the veering is, we can usually get tornadoes out of something like that. That can help determine tornadoes in a lot of ways. I'm not going to pull up a sounding right now and show you the whole breakdown, but that's in a basis of what it is. But we use that more for severe weather. We don't use that for hurricanes. That's not really hurricane related. Am I cool with Ryan Hall? Yeah, I mean, I talk to him a lot, or at least text him a pretty good amount. Thank you, Sean, for the $5 super chat. Watching from Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. Yeah, thunderstorm season is beginning there in Canada. Has been for a few months now. Thank you, Catby, for the $10 super chat. Appreciate that. Yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to leave those in the chat. Our next National Hurricane Center update is in approximately half an hour, so we'll see if this does get upgraded or downgraded. Obviously, looking at infrared imagery, it does not look like it's going to get an upgrade, but the winds are actually still up there, so they're right around 150 miles per hour. I personally do not think this will be upgraded. With that said, it will probably be near its intensity of a Category 4. Sustained winds will probably be around 145 to 150 miles per hour. Could he beat Andy Hill in basketball? I have no clue. Does he even play basketball? If you had to make a prediction, how many hurricanes will we have this year? I don't know. I don't really want to put a number out there, because I just don't do those kind of forecasts. I mean, I'll just go with whatever the National Hurricane Center forecast is, or whatever other forecast is out there. I mean, Colorado State University puts out a forecast too. They're all basically the same. I mean, I'm not going to put a number out there, though. We'll probably have several, though. This is not going to be the only one. We'll have at least, I think, 5 or 6 this year. What will happen in the Cayman Islands? Cayman Islands will probably be a little bit less bad than what we have right now, when it comes to Jamaica, at least. Jamaica is going to be hit hard, but the Cayman Islands will still see significant storm surge. This is what it looks like on the future radar from the HWRF model. Just notice the core of the eye will go basically through the Cayman Islands. So the worst of the hurricane force winds will be on the Cayman Islands. The HWRF model does show the southern side of this eye wall basically being sheared off. If that happens, the worst of the impacts would be on the northern side of this hurricane. So that's where we're going to be looking at the worst impacts for those in the Cayman Islands. And main concern, again, will be hurricane force winds. The potential for some flooding, and as well as storm surge, which will probably be significant. It'll probably be upwards of 6 to 8 feet in some areas. So, also, thank you to Karen for becoming a member, and welcome to Velocities. What a hodograph and a hurricane look like? I actually want to know that too. I've never looked at that. I don't think that's gonna be that crazy, but I'm gonna see if I can pull up a sounding real quick, or at least an actual. Well, actually, I could probably pull up a sounding and see. I think it's gonna be pretty straight though. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. It's literally just a straight line for a hodograph. That's basically all it is, because the wind is all going in a unison direction throughout the atmosphere, at least in the like inner eye wall. So it's just a straight hodograph. And if you don't know what a hodograph is, you don't really have to know. But a hodograph basically shows you the wind from the surface all the way up into the higher up part of the atmosphere. In the eye wall, it's more symmetrical, like it's more just unison one-way direction. And like an outer wall, or like an outer band of storms, like let's just say right here, for example, that's an outer band. It's going to be a bit more curved, and that's why we get tornadoes sometimes. The wind actually varies as we go up into the atmosphere. That gives it the veering effect. And I'll actually just show you guys, whatever. It's fine. Here's what it looks like. So this is a sounding. Or this, sorry, this is a hodograph, but this is a sounding. That's a hodograph. Again, very curved atmosphere, so we could see water spouts on the eastern side of the hurricane. But this is the veering that I'm talking about. A lot of ascent, and then we got winds that are literally going in this direction. That gives it more spin. So that's what we're looking at. That is a veering profile. If the wind barbs were going this way, let's just say it was going kind of more this way, and then kind of came back in or whatever, let's just say it was kind of like that, that would be a backing profile. Again, a lot of things that many of you probably have no clue what I'm saying at this point, but just letting you know what it is, because somebody was asking earlier. What I have for dinner? Peanut butter wafers, and that was it. I have actually not legitimately had really any dinner. I mean, we went live for severe weather, and then 20 minutes later we went live for this, so didn't really have time to eat, but it's fine. I don't know what I'm eating yet for dinner. We will see. Are we going to get hit in DFW? We will see. And if we do, it'll be mostly just rain. I don't think we'll have anything beyond that. Maybe some flooding, but that's related to rain. How fast is the speed? I think it's 20 miles per hour still. Let me double check, though. I don't think that number's really changed much. It's been pretty... Yeah, it's 22 miles per hour right now. It's basically been the same thing this entire time. It's been going 20 to 22 miles per hour almost the entire span of this hurricane. Which is pretty unbelievable, to say the least. There could be up to 30-foot waves, by the way, offshore in Jamaica tomorrow. Just FYI, if you're in Jamaica, there are going to be some large waves near Jamaica tomorrow. All right, let me see real quick. All right. Thank you, Garage, for the $5 super chat. Yeah, huge shout out to all the hurricane hunters. Again, I know somebody that has flown into hurricanes before. They've actually shared their experience with a whole class. Like, it's a whole class. Like, it's a professor that was able to kind of share their experience. It's pretty crazy, and it's actually, I think, pretty cool to be a hurricane hunter. But the turbulence has to be killer with this sort of hurricane. Like, there's definitely severe turbulence with these hurricane hunters that are in the hurricane right now, which they're still in there. I mean, the plane was in here. Where'd it go? It's flying out now. So one of the Hurricane Hunter aircraft are flying out, and they were able to measure some high winds, which as of recently have been measured near 121 knots, which would be kind of a low to medium scale category 4. With that said, we could still see this. You know, I don't think it's going to be upgraded in the next outlook. Like, I don't think this is back to a category 5. It may have briefly, but I don't think it is right now. I think more than anything, this might get downgraded to like 140, maybe 145 mile per hour winds as a category 4. Had some measurements recently near 132 knots for a wind speed, which would be close to about a 145, 150 mile per hour wind speed. And again, this is a little bit off the ground. Don't forget, hurricane hunters, they are not at the ground level. So the wind that they're measuring is off the ground. So the wind at the surface is going to be a bit lower. So just keep that in mind. But hurricane hunting is a serious, like, if you're a hurricane hunter, I highly doubt any are watching, but if you are one, I mean, props to you. It is a crazy job to be a hurricane hunter. It's crazy going into those planes. The amount of tools they have in those airplanes is crazy. Like, they have massive deck of tools ready to go. Thank you, Gary, for the 1999. I was not sad. I was never sad. It's just my typical way I talk. Anyone see me? I see you. Doug. Looks like the cold tops are moving away from the eye. Are you just talking about the convective activity? I mean, this is still a pretty defined eye wall. There's nothing that's... Like, the eye wall in particular, it is weakened a little bit. It's less organized. Like, if you go back a while, I mean, you'd have to go back to yesterday, really. But if you go back in time, this was a very organized eye wall. Now it's a little bit more disorganized, but it still has a ton of convective activity here. And then over here on the east side, like, there are some big storms that are firing up, but that's just the outer bands. That's pretty typical. Ian looked like this, by the way. Ian looked pretty similar to this when we had Hurricane Ian hit Florida. Like, we had something similar to this the day before, where we had these outer bands with big storms that blew up, and they eventually turned into tornadic supercells. So it's pretty interesting. Looks like a little wobble south. Yeah, just a little bit, actually. I didn't actually really look at that, but it is wobbling a little bit to the south. But this is kind of to be expected, honestly. We are going to see this hurricane wobble a lot over the next couple days. It's not going to be a straight line. Most computer models are showing this in a straight line, but that's just not the reality. With that said, the eye is still pretty much here, so it's kind of just hugging the south line. Now, the hope is that this goes more west than north. Because the further, it's not going to go out this way, right? I don't think that's going to happen. But like, the more west it stays, or the further south it stays on this line, the lesser impacts that'll be felt in Jamaica. So we are really hoping that this shifts further south. But the odds of that happening last second are extremely low. They don't really, it doesn't usually work like that. Because there's no large scale feature that's going to turn this hurricane some other direction at this point. It's too late. So, unfortunately, Jamaica is probably going to get hit hard no matter what tomorrow, with significant storm surge that'll be life-threatening, flooding rains, and then also the potential for some hurricane-force winds. Thank you, Modern Achilles, for the $2 super chat. Able to see the coverage area of miles for the whole storm? Well, this is basically the entire storm. I mean, if we measure it from south to north, it's about 430 miles south to north in terms of the entire storm. If you compare that to the state of Florida, that is about it. So a hurricane in this case, it would be literally the entire state of Florida. If it was over Florida, that would be the size of it, which is pretty crazy to think about. That's how large this hurricane is. It's a pretty big hurricane. It will probably shrink a little bit over time, but it's still pretty big. Thank you, Doug, sorry, for the $10 or €10 super chat. I appreciate the generosity. When's the last time I had Culvers? The night before this rapidly intensified into a Category 4 and 5 hurricane. Literally. Do you remember the first hurricane you covered? I would have to say it was Hurricane Laura, I think. That was the first one I ever did live coverage about, was Hurricane Laura. And that was on Facebook. That was not on YouTube. I think that's the first one I ever covered. And that was the one that hit Louisiana. Like, hard. Might get slightly stronger. I mean, I wouldn't rule out intensifying just a little bit, but I don't think it's going to intensify dramatically here, honestly. Like, if it does intensify, it's going to be by a very small amount. First ever tornado covered? I have no clue. I couldn't tell you about that one, actually. It was probably something in Texas, though. That's my guess. It had to be something in Texas. How's Cancun, Mexico looking? Because my brother has to have a wedding. Well, congratulations. That's awesome. I have to say right now that Cancun probably not going to be as bad as Jamaica, because it's not going to really be as intense of a hurricane. But I would expect, at least at the bare minimum, some storm surge if you're right along the immediate coastline, hurricane force winds, and then some flooding rain. It's not expected to be as intense. Again, right now the current forecast is a middle ground Category 1 hurricane. I wouldn't be surprised, though, if it was still on the higher side of that, or even a low-end Category 2. Depending on how this goes over the next 24 hours, I think we'll determine that. With that said, main concern right now is really storm surge for the immediate coastline. And then beyond that, a lot of rain, obviously. The north side of this hurricane would bring the most rain in this particular case. So if I show you the future radar here with the HWRF. Let's go HWRF, Beryl. Long term here. So this is what it would look like. If it does make landfall near Cancun, which again, it might not. It could be further south. I think it'll be probably in this area, though, near Playa del Carmen. In this case, like, the worst of it would be near Cancun when it comes to rain and storm surge, and then also the worst of the winds would be right around the eye, wherever that is. Overall, the hurricane force winds with this particular hurricane, it's not a super large field. So if we go back to the current wind field, this is how large the hurricane force winds are, which, by the way, they are significant. Don't get me wrong. Like, these winds are upwards of 100, like the wind gusts right now, they're upwards of 190 miles per hour. But the field is about 62 miles south to north, or if we go this direction, it's about 67 miles south to north for just hurricane force winds. By the time it gets to Cancun, it's going to be a much smaller field, but let's just say that's the same case when it gets to Cancun. This would be about the distance that that wind would be felt in when it comes to hurricane force winds. So I'll go back a little bit, but that's about the size. Now again, that particular size will be way smaller because it's going to be a much weaker hurricane by this point, but that's when it comes to hurricane force winds. I think really the biggest problem though right now for Cancun will be storm surge. That is my thinking at this point. Thank you, Julie, for the $50 super chat. Put some hearts in the chat for Julie. Appreciate the generosity. No problem at all. Appreciate you tuning in. As a reminder, our next National Hurricane Center update is in approximately 20 minutes. There will probably be a change to the cone and possibly the intensity track. I think there will be. At least that's what I'm thinking. So stay tuned. We'll have that update. And again, about 20 minutes or less. It could be sooner than that. So we'll have an update and see if there's any changes to the outlook and if Texas does get more included into that cone of uncertainty or not. And if this does shift a lot more to the north or whatever it might be. We'll be live for that update. And also, if you are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe down below and like the stream as well. It does help get this out to more people. But subscribing to the channel does ensure that you'll get some more updates from us in terms of Hurricane Beryl. We are going to have another video on this tomorrow morning, and then we may have a live stream covering this sometime tomorrow around landfall. I'm not sure if we will, but we might. So if you're new to the channel, just subscribe down below. It is free to do. It's the red button down below, and we'll keep you posted with the latest. The hurricane could grow in the Gulf. Again, there's a lot of questions about the Gulf of Mexico and if this will rapidly intensify again. But it's very possible that this does become a hurricane again, in the Gulf of Mexico. If it takes more of an easterly path like this, I think it is definitely going to become a hurricane. If it goes more like this, I don't think it's going to become a hurricane again. If it goes towards Texas, slowly, I think it becomes a hurricane as well. This is the highest likelihood, though, of rapid intensification would be if this happened. If this hurricane went towards Louisiana, I think that's the best chance of us seeing a rapid intensification happening. Which means that this could jump from like a tropical storm or a low hurricane up to like a category 3 or 4 hurricane. That is what that means. Jamaica's in bad shape. Yeah, unfortunately, Jamaica is going to be probably hit straight on with this, and if not, it's gonna be just on the south side. And even if it's the south side, we're still gonna see major impacts there to Jamaica. Significant storm surge, flooding, rains. Just it's nothing that's good at this point, unfortunately. So if you know any friends or family in Jamaica, just make sure that they're ready for this. Make sure that they are ready to go, because at this point there's only about probably about maybe another 18 hours until landfall, but tomorrow morning when you wake up, you're only about like 5 or 6 hours away from possible landfall. At least the worst of the impacts will be felt near then. Do you think it will pass Houston? I think that's a possibility. It's not a guarantee. It's going to depend a lot on what happens the next few days, but it's definitely a possibility. Again, if you want more details on what to expect, I mentioned this earlier, but if you want more details on what to expect, I highly recommend going back to the first minute of our live stream. The first 15 minutes, I talk about all the possibilities with Hurricane Beryl, what I think it'll do, and what the intensity will be here over the next several days. So just go back to the very beginning of today's stream, check it out, and definitely watch that segment, the first 15 minutes. If you don't want to watch an entire 15-minute live stream footage of me talking about this from the very beginning, you can watch my video today on our YouTube page. The link is going to be, there's no link, but you can just click on my channel and then go there and look under the videos tab, and the latest video has very similar details to what's happening now. Other than that, it's just the only difference really is that the time is different. Like I made that forecast earlier in the day, so... Was Jamaica expected to be hit this hard? The initial thinking was that Jamaica might get narrowly missed with like a southerly pass to this, but unfortunately it looks like we could see a direct landfall in Jamaica. So, unfortunately, it does not look good for Jamaica. And I've never been to Jamaica. I've been to some of these islands, or maybe I have. I might have been. I think I went to Jamaica on a cruise ship, but I don't know if I actually went there. But it's a beautiful island, and hopefully they don't get hit very hard. But it looks like almost worst case scenario for Jamaica is going to be happening. Thank you, Captain Jerry, for the $10 super chat. I'm a sea captain. Why do people say the storm moved safely out to sea? I work there. It's not safe. Yeah, hurricanes like this are not safe at all. It will downgrade. There's a good chance that this does downgrade before it gets to Jamaica. Even if it does, the impacts are going to be very minimally different because we're still talking about substantial storm surge, extreme flooding rains, and then also the possibility here for, you know, hurricane force winds across basically the entire island. So, unfortunately, right now, Jamaica is basically in the bullseye of some of the worst impacts that'll be felt. Your information scroll's broken. I thought it was. I thought I saw that too. Yeah, I see that. It doesn't fit all the words. I'll just change it. All right, there we go. I changed it. Unfortunately, I don't know how I fixed that issue. I've had that issue before. As a reminder, we will have a National Hurricane Center update in approximately 10 to 15 minutes, so stay tuned. We will give you the latest information on everything that you need to know when that update does come out. So, we'll have that update probably within the next 10 minutes, maybe 15 minutes, and we'll see if there's any intensification that has happened or if it is weakening. As of now, the eye of the hurricane is located right here, just south of the cone of uncertainty. Like, at least it's in the cone of uncertainty, but just on the southern side of that cone of uncertainty. So it is going a little bit more west now. But it is still expected to make a very close pass to Jamaica, or it'll make landfall in Jamaica tomorrow. So if you're in Jamaica, again, get all those preparations done, ready to go, because tomorrow you're not going to have any time to really do any of that. And then after that, it'll eventually go towards the Cayman Islands, which that'll be predominantly going into overnight Wednesday into Thursday morning, and then eventually going towards the Yucatan Peninsula as we go into Friday, which that'll be probably early Friday morning for the Yucatan Peninsula. But if you are new to the channel, again, just make sure you're subscribed down below. It is free to do. We are going to continue to post updates if you're like in the Yucatan Peninsula, if you are in Texas or Louisiana or any part of Mexico, really. We are going to continue to post update videos, and we'll be going live just like this to give you an explanation of what's happening and what you can expect. I highly also recommend you click the bell icon down below so you're notified when we go live and when videos come out, so you know when we actually have videos and live streams out there. So definitely recommend you do all that. If it's downgraded, what category would it be? Oh, it would be a 3 if it got downgraded, which I don't know if I don't think it'll be downgraded that far. I think in this next outlook, like, this is my prediction. All right, this prediction's really irrelevant because the difference this makes for tomorrow is very minimal, unless there's a major downgrade, which I don't think there will be. I think the downgrade would be like 5 miles per hour. It's at 150 right now. I think we could probably subtract 5 from that on the next outlook. That's what I'm thinking. And then the pressure probably increased by 2 or 3 millibars. Let me check the data though real quick, because they do have actual pressure data that comes in. Let me check real quick. The latest pressure measurement is 948 and 949 millibars, so this will actually probably increase by 4 or 5 millibars. So this is actually, again, it's still weakening a little bit. The pressure is going up, which is always something that you want to see for a weaker, at least something that's weakening. With that said, the winds that have been measured are still up there. The highest observations as of lately were closer to, let me see, we have a couple different observations. We still have observations that have been measured close to 137 knots as of not super long ago. I'm just trying to read some of the data. We have some like charts here. There was a couple pass-throughs. One of them was around 128 knots for a peak wind gust, or 127, 128, and then the other one was near 138. So this is probably still a category. I don't know if it's going to really be downgraded by much in this next update. If it is downgraded at all, it'd be by like 5 miles per hour. It's not going to be a major downgrade from that, at least that information. Hey, Big Brother Brief for the $4.99. No problem at all. Appreciate you tuning in. What's the size of the hurricane? I mean, the hurricane itself is not like super big, but if you just go south to north here, it's like 400. It's almost about 400 to 450 miles north to south. If you go west to east, it's still about 300-ish miles. That's including the outer bands, though. I mean, if you just include like the core of it, it's like almost 200 miles wide. Not the biggest hurricane we've ever seen by any means. It's the fastest moving Category 5 hurricane that we've ever had. All right, we have a new update from the National Hurricane Center. Just came out. So for those wondering about the update, we are getting it now. By the way, thank you, Russell, for becoming a 1-month member. All right, this is the latest from the National Hurricane Center. It's not fully updated yet. Actually, nothing's really updated yet, but they just released the new messaging on Twitter. Hurricane Beryl Advisory 18. Dangerous Hurricane Beryl expected to bring life-threatening winds and storm surge to Jamaica on Wednesday in the Cayman Islands, Wednesday night and Thursday. So that's the latest from that. We don't have any other details yet. We are waiting for everything to update on their website. All right, here's the latest public advisory as of 11 p.m. So there are some changes to the hurricane. So, as I just mentioned the wording that, I'm not going to repeat the wording here, but this is the 11 p.m. advisory. This is their big update. The next big update like this is at 5 a.m. tomorrow. Here's the summary. So location, I'm not going to go over that. It's, again, just south of Haiti. It's about 300 miles to the east-southeast of Kingston, Jamaica. So what that means is that if we do a measurement here, it's going 22 miles per hour to the west-northwest. So it's basically going to be there tomorrow, probably around like 2 or 3 o'clock or so for like maybe a near landfall. The maximum sustained winds are 150 miles per hour. So that's the current wind speeds. The pressure has increased. So the pressure has increased from 943 millibars to 947 millibars. Again, this was the pressure before. It is increasing. What does that mean? It does mean that this is weakening to some extent. It's not as strong as before, but the wind speed is still the same. It has not changed, but it is at least starting to become slightly weaker. It's not by much, but it is slightly weaker. You can see it on infrared imagery. I mean, we don't really have an eye anymore. It's been kind of filled in at this point, but it is still an intense Category 4 hurricane. And there's, again, been no signs of major weakening when it comes to the wind speeds. There is a hurricane warning that is in effect for Jamaica, Grand Cayman, and Little Cayman and Cayman Brac. Hurricane watch in effect for the south coast of Haiti, from the border within the Dominican Republic, and then the east coast of the Yucatan Peninsula from Chetumal until to the Catacochi area. Again, I might not be pronouncing these right. I'm just going to try my best here. But those are the areas that are included in that hurricane watch. Tropical storm warnings are in effect for south coast of the Dominican Republic from Punta Palicay westward of the border of Haiti, and then south coast of Haiti with the border to the Dominican Republic. I'll show this on a map here in a second to make more sense. And then a tropical storm watch is in effect for those on the coast of Belize from the south Chetumal to Belize City. A hurricane warning means that hurricane conditions are expected somewhere within the warning area. Preparations to protect property and life should be rushed to completion if you're in a hurricane warning. That means if you're in Jamaica, you need to be prepared now. This is going to be making a very close appearance or a landfall tomorrow. We should have an update on the cone of uncertainty as well. So we're going to have that here in a moment. Once that comes in, we will show you. Actually, it already has come in. I don't know what the last cone was. We're gonna do comparing and contrasting here. Give me 1 second. Where is my other thing here? So we have a new cone of uncertainty. This is not the new one. This is the old one. Just give me a second. Oops. Where'd this just go? Right here. All right. I'm gonna line these up and show you the difference. So you can kind of compare and contrast the two. So here is the 8 p.m. one. All right. So this is the old cone of uncertainty. This is the new one. So the slightest bit of a shift to the north and east is their latest update on the cone of uncertainty. We're going to see what the intensity shows as well on this, because that could change as well. This is actually another update here as well. This is expected to be a major hurricane all the way through Jamaica and then eventually start to weaken a little bit. We'll see what the wind speeds are on this, because that'll probably change as well. The only difference, though, you can see it over time here, is that this hurricane is expected to be slightly slower here in the Gulf of Mexico. That's one change. The other change is that this cone is a little bit more out here now. So long term, this could again go towards Texas or maybe Louisiana. This is kind of like the long-term track. It's basically anywhere from Texas, maybe up to the Louisiana border, back into Mexico. So right now, a landfall in South Texas, again, is appearing more and more likely. It could happen between Houston or even Beaumont, all the way back to Galveston. Any of those areas, we could see a landfall with this. It is still forecasted to be a tropical storm in the Gulf of Mexico, but that is definitely subject to change. I do not think that's going to continue to stay the same unless we see changes to that forecast and it literally just goes into Mexico again and not into Texas. All right, I'm gonna wait for these update. I'm gonna wait for this to update. This track will update here in a second on Radar Omega, and I'll show you what we're actually looking at in terms of the intensity and whatnot. Because the intensity track will actually show the categories and stuff like that. The National Hurricane Center website doesn't show that, other than some of the plotted points, I think, which I'll try to find. Let me see if I can find that. Let's see. Okay, so yeah, we'll just wait for this to update. We're gonna wait a second for this to update, and then I'll go over the intensity forecast because this will show up better. Because I mean, all right, it just updated. All right, that didn't take long. So this is where the hurricane is right now. The hurricane actually has not updated, but the hurricane eye is right here. This is behind a little bit, but it should update here in a second. The cone updated. The line has not updated, so we have to wait for that line to update. They actually have shifted the track. This is, I don't know how good of news this is because it doesn't really make a difference for Jamaica in my opinion. They have shifted the cone of uncertainty the slightest bit more to the south, but it doesn't really matter at this point. I think Jamaica, even if the eye goes here, the eye wall is still going to reach almost all of Jamaica, which means the worst of the impacts will be felt in Jamaica. So this doesn't, the cone of uncertainty shifting the slightest bit south here really does not make a difference. Unfortunately, I wish it did, but it's not really going to make a difference. The intensity is still going to be really significant. All right, this line should update here in a second. But the cone of uncertainty does now go up to Corpus Christi. If this cone of uncertainty went like another day out, it would probably include areas back up in here as well. Which this cone of uncertainty is larger. It just changed back to what it was before. It's trying to update, so just give it a second. Thank you, Mark, for becoming a moderate velocity member, and welcome to the Velocities. Let me try to refresh it and see if that does it. It's not updated yet. I will have to say though, like the cone of uncertainty, at least for Jamaica, it's a bit further down to the south, so the eye has a lesser chance of making landfall there, but regardless, we are still looking at major impacts. It doesn't really change what happens tomorrow, unfortunately. It's still, the northern eye wall is still going to hit Jamaica pretty hard. All right, this cone is still not updating. Yeah, let me just refresh this real quick. Let me try to do that. Beryl is not listening? Yeah, really isn't. Well, this is the cone of uncertainty. We're just waiting for the intensity to update. But the cone of uncertainty, again, does go up towards Corpus Christi. Not really shocking by any means. I mean, we kind of already expected this to happen. But if this cone of uncertainty went out another day or something like that, Houston would probably be in it. So just letting you know, like, Houston is still a possible landfall place, but we don't know exactly. Like, again, a lot of computer models are showing a landfall somewhere, either in Mexico or in Texas. This is all the computer models just for reference. So almost every single model is still showing to have it making landfall between Houston and Mexico. Majority of them are showing it near Texas or just south of Texas and Mexico. There are a few that do go up towards like Houston, and there's even a couple that go towards Louisiana still. Those are still considered outliers, at least for now. All right, this intensity should change in a second. Still waiting on it. While we wait for the intensity, oh, I think it just did. All right, here we go. All right, so it's updated now. All right, here's this is the fully updated cone. So for right now, as I mentioned, it is a hurricane that has now weakened the smallest bit. The wind gusts are at 185 miles per hour. I'm pretty sure a second ago it was at 190. So the wind is decreasing just the slightest bit. All right, so that's the latest. It's not a major change. It's still the same thing, basically, just like 2 miles per hour less. It's like saying you missed 2 ounces of water in a 150 ounce water, recipe, if you know what I mean. It's not much of a difference. The pressure has increased, though, from 943 millibars to 947 millibars. So that's the big change here. Now, after this point, we are expecting this to continue as a Category 4 hurricane, and it will probably still be a Category 4 into Jamaica. I think it will be. I don't think it's going to weaken a whole lot there. Right now, just before Jamaica tomorrow morning, it is expected to be a Category 4 hurricane with sustained winds around 145 miles per hour and wind gusts up to 175 miles per hour. Now, as this approaches Jamaica, it is going to weaken a little bit because it's going to be interacting with land, but it is still going to produce the same impacts as what's been forecasted the last couple days. Nothing's changed. All right, so if you're in Jamaica, don't think, oh, let's party. That's not what we should be doing. This is still a very dangerous and life-threatening situation. Once we go into tomorrow night, this eye will be passing by Jamaica. The worst of the impacts in Jamaica will be probably from about 10 a.m. or so up until about 6 to 7 p.m. After that and before that, there will be impacts, but they will not be as substantial. So the time frame is like 10 to 7 tomorrow. Actually, yeah, it's approximately 10 to 7, maybe even 11 to 8, kind of in that time frame. Tomorrow night, though, it'll probably be downgraded to a Category 3. The more it interacts with land, the weaker it will be. The less it interacts with land, it might still be a Category 4 to this point, but it would be on the very low spectrum of that. After this, once it gets closer to the Cayman Islands, it will continue on a weakening trend. It could still be a Category 3 near the Cayman Islands as we go into early Thursday morning. So as of right now, still forecasted at 7 a.m. on Thursday to be a Category 2 or a low-end Category 3 hurricane. After this, it is going to start to weaken a little bit more as it goes towards the Yucatan Peninsula. Notice, though, they have actually made this so it is still a Category 2 hurricane, so a small uptick from the last the last cone of uncertainty, with sustained winds at 100 miles per hour and wind gusts at 120 miles per hour, moving west-northwest. After this, it's going to be a tropical storm because it's going to be moving right over land as it goes into the Yucatan. Now, if this takes the furthest northerly track possible, that's worst case scenario, because in this particular case, we are going to be seeing an eye that goes over very little land, and the weakening would be way less than what this would be. So if it goes over more land, basically, the better it'll be in the Gulf. Like, it'll be at least a bit weaker in the Gulf. If it goes further to the north, though, we could see this still as an intense hurricane to some extent. It will be probably a Category 1 up here on a stronger side of things if that happened. Further south it goes, the better case scenario when it comes to just the overall Gulf of Mexico track. So that's what I'm kind of getting at here. So let's hope it goes further south and not further north, because further north would be way worse for those in Texas and Louisiana, because we could see rapid intensification or something along those lines and a stronger hurricane. Now, as this continues to go into the Gulf, the National Hurricane Center has continued to keep a conservative forecast when it comes to wind speeds and the intensity, as still as a tropical storm as it goes over the Yucatan, which, by the way, this would be Friday night at about 7 p.m. So it would re-enter into the Gulf of Mexico at around 7 p.m. or so, give or take a few hours on Friday night. Saturday night, it'll be over parts of the southwestern Gulf. It'll probably slow down by Sunday night as it approaches either Mexico or Texas, or if it's out here somewhere. If it makes landfall down here, that's a better case scenario when it comes to this not rapidly intensifying. Rapid intensification is only really going to happen if it's over open waters, and it's also somewhere in this area, in my opinion. Like, the hurricane would have to go into here for there to be a possibility, at least, of rapid intensification. We could still see that happen near the coast. I just think the chances are a bit lower. Now, beyond this, where does it make landfall? Could it be Mexico? It could. Could it be Texas? It could as well. It could also be Louisiana. All three of those areas are still in the potential for a landfall. Now, most computer models, as I mentioned before, still mostly include Mexico and Texas. There aren't many models showing Louisiana at this point. It's not entirely ruled out, but I would say it's like a 5 to 10% chance. For those in Texas, my personal forecast, not the National Hurricane Center, but my forecast is that I would say about a 45% chance at a landfall in Texas, and then I'll give the remaining 40% or so to a landfall in Mexico, 40 to 45%. So I still think it's pretty 50-50 on Texas and Mexico for a landfall, but we could still give a small sliver of that chance to Louisiana, because I still think there's a chance, depending on how strong this ridge is, it could still try to trickle a little bit more out to the east. Again, I still think it's a low chance, but it is a possibility. Nonetheless, right now the impacts for Texas, if it does make landfall in Texas, are very uncertain. We will probably have some level of storm surge, at least some type of tornado risk, and probably at least some sort of flooding risk as well, because this will be slowing down, and then perhaps hurricane force winds. All of that stuff, though, is still very uncertain at this point. I do want to really quickly show you the WRF model, what the track shows on this particular model. So as of right now, it still shows us going through areas near Jamaica tomorrow. Eventually, as we go into Thursday, it goes through the Cayman Islands. By Friday, this goes towards Cancun, with a landfall, by the way. And then eventually, as we go into Saturday, this eventually will go into the southwestern Gulf. And by Sunday, this kind of just sits out here just to the east of Texas. And then this from here is very uncertain. But this one particular scenario does show this going towards Texas. I am still leaning towards there being a higher chance of this making landfall in Texas comparatively to Mexico or Louisiana. With that said, we could still see landfall in any of these places. But just know the highest chance of this making landfall at this point is going to exist within the cone of uncertainty. So that is from parts of Mexico, north of Mexico City, all the way back to areas in South Texas. So as a reminder, if you're new to the channel, obviously make sure that you subscribe down below. We are going to probably be live I don't know if we'll be live tomorrow, but we might be live tomorrow for some Jamaica coverage with the latest update on this and the track. If we're not live tomorrow, though, we are going to continue to have videos and as well as live streams on this particular hurricane as it does continue to move to the west and northwest into the Gulf of Mexico. But yeah, that's the latest. And again, if you're new to the channel, subscribe. We'll probably have another, I don't know if we'll be live tomorrow, but we'll at least have a video tomorrow morning on the latest update. Nobody's talking about Haiti. Haiti's not going to really get hit by this. The south side could see some tropical storm force winds and some storm surge, but beyond that, Haiti's not seeing much. It's not going to be crazy there in Haiti. This is what it looks like right now in the infrared imagery. Again, Haiti is getting some of the outer bands, and that's it. And that is all up in here as of right now. By the way, thank you to Tiger for the $2 super chat. In Texas, what would be the backlash for Oklahoma? Just rain. I mean, it would just be rain if it actually got that far to the north. And also thank you, Tiger, for becoming a member and welcome to the Velocities. But yeah, if this went to Texas, I mean, we would see potential for flooding rains, or at least rain in general in Texas. And then beyond that, for like Oklahoma, for example, like really who knows what's going to happen. I mean, it would be mostly just rain if Oklahoma gets anything, but it would not be that significant, in my opinion. Have a good night, Jacqueline. But if you're in Jamaica, you need to be prepared now. So prepare now, be ready. If you're in the Cayman Islands, you need to be preparing tomorrow or even now. If you're in Cayman Islands, and then Yucatan Peninsula, you should be starting to prepare tomorrow or now for this hurricane. Now, once this gets closer to the, Cancun area, the impacts will be lesser than now, but it's still going to be an intense hurricane with some major impacts still, with storm surge, flooding rains, and hurricane force winds being possible. That is the latest update from the National Hurricane Center. All right. And if you have any questions, again, feel free to leave those in the chat. We'll be answering questions here for a little bit. And again, if you have any questions about scenarios, what could happen, I highly recommend you just go back to the very beginning of today's live stream. Go to the first 15 minutes and just watch it all out, because I go over every scenario possible, basically, and then also kind of what I expect in terms of the forecast. And in addition to that, not just that, but also if you want to watch my video from earlier today, this morning, you can watch that. I have similar details in the video as well. So there's a lot of places that you can go here on the YouTube channel. We have a lot of different informational videos that'll kind of give you an idea of what to expect. Again, with that said, there are videos all over the internet. You could probably find any video, but if you trust me to give you the latest information, YouTube video or this live stream would be the ways to do so. But yeah, again, there's a lot of YouTube live streams, videos, all that stuff out there that will give you differing information probably, but just know I have done this for 4+ years now, about 5 years really, about forecasting hurricanes, and we've been pretty good with it. So I have a pretty good track record, I would say. How do tornadoes form in hurricanes? Well, it happens on the outer bands. Like this right here, this is we probably have multiple water spouts right now south of Haiti and Dominican Republic. So on the outer bands, that's where the greatest tornado threat is, and it usually only happens on the north and east side of a hurricane. With that said, I mean, what will the tornado risk be in Texas or Louisiana? Who knows? It's just too early to tell, because it depends on the track. If the hurricane made landfall over here, the tornado risk could be like here. It would be a very small area. If it goes to Houston, the tornado risk could be over in Louisiana. and East Texas, and maybe up to Dallas. But like, again, it's kind of one of those scenarios where it could be a large area, and an area that, in my opinion, is just, again, it's just such a large spectrum, if you know what I mean. It could be anywhere. It's harder to forecast hurricanes than it is for a severe weather event 5 days out, though, in my opinion. Any more plane view? Let me see. I don't know if the plane is still in there, but we'll check. There were 2. I don't know if they're gonna have another plane out there tonight. The latest update was 11 minutes ago. I think they might be finishing up. Where is this plane, though, is the question. This plane might be going in again. We'll see. It's currently flying east, though. But they've had 6 different missions in the last 24 hours. So they've had 2. They have 2 ongoing right now. They're both in progress, but I think both planes are flying out. One is still in progress, and one is in storm. So I don't know. I think they're still doing a mission. I think both of them are still doing a mission, but I think they might be departing, like, from this area until like 5 a.m. probably tomorrow. But I really have to say, like, the eye wall is still very strong. That's where the worst of the winds will be with this hurricane. The eye is kind of gone at this point. I mean, if you remember from yesterday, this had a perfectly symmetrical eye. It does not have that anymore. So this is still a really intense hurricane, even though it does not look organized anymore. It still is. We still have a big eye wall. So unfortunately, it's still very significant. What kind of planes fly into these? I don't know what kind of planes. I'm not a plane person, to be honest. Let me see. It's called the NOAA-2 mission. That's not the plane type, but they are hurricane hunters. They're not like... The AF-302 is one of the other ones that went in, which I think is an Air Force plane, actually. Somebody said C-2-130s. Or C-2000-130s. So... sorry, special C-130s, WP-3 and WC-130. So there's a lot of answers in the chat, but I am not a plane person. I've learned about this, I'm pretty sure, but like, I just don't remember. I don't remember some of these specific details. I'm not a big plane person, to be honest. By the way, the National Hurricane Center just put this out. Storm surge could raise water levels as much as 6 to 9 feet in Jamaica tomorrow. Which, for reference, I'm 8'7", right? So that's pretty tall. I'm not actually 8'7", by the way, but that's really tall. 9 feet of water is literally like huge if you're along the immediate coastline. That's the entire first floor of your home, basically. So unfortunately, that's going to be really substantial when it comes to the overall storm surge. It's actually pretty similar to Ian's levels too. How's it going, Devin? I haven't seen you, Devin, in forever. Like an OG, I think. I think you're the other. I think you're the Devon. I could be wrong. That you Gilmore for the $5 super chat. Trains and planes. Do you hate automobiles too? I mean, like, I'm not really into cars, but like, I gotta tell you. I want a Cybertruck. That's what I want. I don't care what anybody says, but I want a Cybertruck. Maybe Elon Musk can hit me up with a Cybertruck, because I really want one. That'd be so fun. Those things look crazy. They might not get you really anywhere, but those would be pretty lit. Yeah, I was? Okay. Yeah, I remember you. Imagine taking a Cybertruck through some of the, like a hurricane or something. That'd be insane. Can't believe there's a hurricane. I can't either. I put a message out on Twitter last night, like at 4 a.m. 4 a.m. thoughts with max velocity on Twitter. I put out a message. I was like, I cannot, my eyes cannot comprehend this hurricane right now with where we're at right now. Like, I just can't comprehend this. With the calendar day that we're at and where this is and how intense it is, I cannot comprehend this at all. It's just so strange. Where is that message? Yeah, this is what I said. This is what I said on Twitter last night, which, by the way, you can follow me on Twitter at MaxVelocityWX. Still cannot believe my eyes and my calendar when I look at Hurricane Beryl. I mean, like, it's crazy. And the update on Tropical Depression Curtis. Curtis is gone. It's a goner. It's already done. By the way, if you want more hurricane updates, obviously make sure to be subscribed to the channel. Follow me on Facebook. Follow me on Twitter at MaxVelocityWX. All those links are in the description below. I am going to continue to post frequent updates on those platforms. If you want them, you can follow me. If you don't, I don't really care. Again, you can follow me if you want. I keep posting stuff on there no matter what, so feel free to check that out. Again, the links are in the description, or you can just look up at MaxVelocityWX. Love the hurricane fears. I'm not putting out fears. I'm just telling you the facts here. Like, this is a significant hurricane. I mean, I get it. Some people think there's some fear-mongering aspect of this stuff. There really isn't here. Like, I'm just telling you what the facts are and what to expect. And the scenarios. I'm just giving you all the possibilities. I mean, there's nothing that I'm trying to scare you guys about. I'm just making sure. I'm hoping that people right now in Jamaica are prepared for this. Same thing with the Yucatan and maybe even over into Texas and Louisiana, because those areas could get hit. It's a possibility. Is it still sitting at a Category 5? No, this got downgraded like 6 hours ago, maybe 8 hours ago. But it's still a high-end Category 4. It's, despite it being at 150-mile-per-hour winds, it's still significant. It's very close to a Category 5, but it's still, again, it's weakening right now. So it should continue a weakening trend for the next little while. Could it re-strengthen the Gulf? It could. Again, I recommend going back to the first 15 minutes of today's live stream. I went over all the scenarios that are possible with Hurricane Beryl. So definitely recommend you going back to the very beginning of the live stream today. All the details are there. With all the different scenarios. Somebody just added me on Twitter. You want to take a Cybertruck into a hurricane? They can't handle car washes. It's actually, you're not wrong. I've seen that on Twitter. Could it level up again? I don't think this can become a Category 5 again tonight. I highly doubt it. Even if it does, the hurricane difference between 10 miles per hour is so minimal. This is still going to be an intense hurricane no matter what happens to its intensity. And just going back, though, I mean, the eye looked way worse today. It was way more organized, and it's really lost its intensity by quite a bit. So, I mean, the eye wall is still really strong. Nothing's weakened that. Just the eye itself has been falling apart quite a bit. It's been trying to do an eye wall recycle. It's just struggling. Any blast for the $5 super chat? Appreciate the super chat. I've actually heard about that too. I think it'd just be cool to drive. I've seen them before. They look crazy. The amount of people that take photos of those still is up there. What keeps a hurricane organized for so long? Well, I mean, there's a couple factors that you have to factor in here. If the hurricane is in an environment where there's like no wind shear and there's really just moist air and there's really no dry air near it, it's going to stay intense for a while. Now, if there's a lot of wind shear and there's a lot of dry air, it's going to weaken or just weaken over time or whatever. Right now, we have 20 to 30 knot winds when it comes to wind shear. That is not enough to weaken a hurricane this strong that fast. That's the problem that's happening right now. We have strong wind shear in this area. We do. We have wind shear that should be able to weaken a hurricane easily. But when you have an intense hurricane like this, that's at a Category 4 or even near Category 5 level, it takes a lot more than that to weaken it. I think Hurricane Wilma might be a good example, where there was wind shear near like 35 to 40 knots, and it did not weaken at all. It kept going. This is a similar situation right now, where it's going to take time for this to weaken. If this was a Category 1 hurricane, this would probably be gone by now with that much wind shear. But there's a lot of wind shear, and the hurricane is just so intense, has an amazing eye wall structure. It's going to take a lot of time for that to happen. And also, there's not a whole lot of dry air feeding into this. If we had more dry air feeding into it, I think it would weaken a little bit faster too. What about the heat dome? What heat dome are you talking about? The one in Florida that's going to develop? I mean, that's not going to really weaken it. That's just directing it more than anything. Your live streams are fantastic. I appreciate that. I'm glad you enjoy them. I'm officially out of soda. Back to water. Somebody just said, Max, for everything you do for other people, let me buy a round of golf for you on me and groceries on me. You don't have to do that. I appreciate your generosity, but you don't have to do that. I will have to say, though, me and Connor Croft going to be doing a golf match at some point. We'll definitely have to... I don't know what we're going to do about that yet. I don't know which... I'm not entirely sure where we're playing yet. I don't actually know, but it'll probably be in Florida somewhere. You must be living under a rock if you are not aware of the heat dome over Texas. Unsubscribe, see ya. Have a great day. I don't care. Like, I know there, I mean, it's been hot in Texas. It's always like this during the summer, but I wouldn't call it a heat dome. I mean, there's been showers and thunderstorms in at least parts of Texas, but it's always like that. I don't personally call it a heat dome, but you can do whatever. I really could care less if you want to unsubscribe for that. That's fantastic. Like, I really could care less. Have a good one. We'll be seeing you. It's probably the most irrelevant conversation, though. A heat dome with this does not really mean anything, because the heat dome's not going to block the hurricane. Like, this hurricane, it could still go into Texas, even if there's a massive heat wave still happening. The ridge over here that's in the upper levels, that's what's going to steer this. So, I really don't care. It has nothing to do with this. I mean, there's always a heat dome in the United States in the summer. It's nothing new. Texas is melting. I mean, it melts every summer. It's been so hot there. DFW's been in the hundreds at least 3 times, I think, this year. It's not as many as last year, but it's definitely up there. Need more for the $5 super chat. But seriously, you cover hurricanes? I sure do. Hey, Matt, message me on Twitter, actually, or email me or something. Because I will look where that is, and me and Connor actually might play there, depending on where it is. Because we're planning on playing our golf match in Florida. I don't usually get mad with people like that, but, like, seriously, it has nothing to do with what's happening right now. I could care less about a heat dome when it comes to a hurricane. It literally, it's just so unrelated. It's not even funny. That's a huge hurricane. How wide is it? Right now, I think the size of it is still about 350 to 400 miles. I mean, it depends on how you measure it. If you measure, like, even the outer bands, it's about 350. When it comes to a diameter going west to east. North to south, it's about 350 as well. So, I mean, it's about 300, 350 or so. I mean, the hurricane force winds, the diameter is only about 70 miles or so. You could also look at just the wind radius in general, and that'll give you an idea of what the wind field is. The wind field north to south is about 240 miles or so. And then west to east, it's about 250, 260. So, that's what we're looking at right now. Let me take off the tropical overlay. Let's do that. When and what time will hit Jamaica? Jamaica's going to see the worst impacts between 10 to 11 a.m. tomorrow, all the way up until 7 to 8 p.m. tomorrow. So basically, almost the entire daylight hours is when the worst of the impacts will be felt. Landfall would probably be... if landfall does happen, which is not a guarantee, but if it does happen for Jamaica, it would be sometime around probably 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Maybe... let me add an hour to that. Let's say between 2 and 5. That would be the more likely landfall time frame. I keep forgetting, my clock is on CST, which is Central Time Zone, which... Is Jamaica in Eastern time, or is that another time zone? That might be another hour ahead. Because if you're another hour ahead, then it would probably be between 2 and 5, no matter what. I think Playa del Carmen and like the Yucatan will be mostly just wind and storm surge. If the hurricane stays down here, the storm surge will be way worse. If the hurricane goes to like here or up near Cancun, the storm surge would be less of a concern, but flooding, rains, and hurricane force winds right now the main concern. I don't expect this to be a category like 3 or 4 making landfall there, but it'll probably at least be a category 1, maybe even a category 2. It's eastern. Okay, so 2 to 5. I mean, either way, it's probably be about 2 to 5 if landfall happens. Again, a friendly reminder, if you are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe. We're currently 80 subscribers away from 309,000. If you are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe down below. As a reminder, if you are new and you don't know what's coming, well, we are going to go ahead and tell you right now that we're going to have a video tomorrow morning about Hurricane Beryl as it continues to literally barrel to the west. So click the bell icon down below. You'll be notified when that video comes out with the latest information from the National Hurricane Center and our latest forecast more than anything. In addition to that, we are going to have possibly a live stream tomorrow. I can't guarantee it. I'm not sure if we're going to go live for this, but I will consider going live tomorrow for the Jamaica landfall. The only thing is, even if I go live for it, like Jamaica is going to already be without power for the probably for the most part, or at least like a lot of the island will be without power. So I'm not sure if we're going to go live tomorrow for coverage. I will try, but even if I do, it's probably going to be sometime around or after lunchtime. So don't, rely on live stream coverage for me, at least. I don't think I'll be, I'm not 100% sure if I'll be live. Just click the bell icon, subscribe, you'll be notified. For those in the Yucatan, I am probably not going to have a live stream leading up to that, but I will probably at least have a video leading up to the Yucatan Peninsula. So, again, just make sure you subscribe to the channel. And then eventually, as it gets closer to the United States, we could begin live stream coverage as early as Friday for the United States aspect of Hurricane Beryl. So if you are in Texas, if you are in Louisiana, or even over here in parts of Mexico, we are going to have live stream coverage probably beginning on Friday. If it is not looking as concerning, it might not happen till Saturday. If this is a tropical storm and it does not look like it's going to rapidly intensify in the Gulf, we will more than likely end up, instead of having live coverage on Friday, it would probably begin on Saturday. If it looks like this could go big in the Gulf, we will have live stream coverage beginning Friday. The only reason why that is because I am currently going to be on a quote-unquote vacation. Not really much of a vacation. It's just a quick little trip for the 4th of July. That'll be tomorrow night. All of the 4th of July, but I should still have a video on that day. And then I'll probably be there as well on Friday of this week. After that, I come back for Saturday, but if I need to, I can come back on Friday. I'm not like obligated to be there, but at least I'm going to be there for July 3rd and 4th. So that's what I'm thinking, at least. So again, if you are new to the channel, just make sure to subscribe down below, and we will be keep you posted with the latest on Hurricane Beryl. Thank you, Brent, for the $5 super chat. Single digit handicap. I think it's like 8 or 9. I think my handicap's like an 8 or 9. It might be a 10. I feel like I'm gonna check if I have my handicap on here real quick. I'll look and see if I have it. I am hearing a subscriber from Jamaica looking out for Beryl. Stay safe, Dash. Seriously, I hope everybody in Jamaica, gets out without any sort of injuries or anything like that. Hopefully everybody stays safe there. Jamaica is a beautiful country. I'm pretty sure, I have horrible memory for some reason, but I'm pretty sure I went on a cruise in December, and I'm pretty sure I went to Jamaica. I don't know if I actually went on the island, but I remember like at least looking at it. It's a beautiful island. My handicap's about a 10, so that's my handicap. Where am I going? I'll be going to Disney World for the 4th of July fireworks. Is the black on radar the strongest part of the hurricane? Not necessarily. This is just the coldest cloud tops aloft, so this would indicate the eye wall. Anything outside of this is predominantly just thunderstorms. So it's really, I mean, this is the strongest part of the hurricane is right here. This is just convection, and that's thunderstorm development, possibly even some water spouts or tornadoes or whatever it might be. So that's what we're looking at there. Animal Kingdom live stream part 2? No, I'm not gonna, I don't think I'm doing a live stream from there. I'll have videos probably, though. I'll at least have one video when I'm there, but it won't be I'm not going to be staying at Animal Kingdom. I'll actually be staying at Bay Lake Tower, so. Is that twice a month? Are you talking about me going to Disney? No, this is just, it's just, I went the beginning of June, and now I'm going beginning of July, and then after that I probably won't be back for a while. Enjoy the vacation. Hope you can beat the heat and the rain this time. I hope so too. It's gonna be hot though, unfortunately. Members only videos? Not for vacation, no. But I should have more of those coming when the weather gets quieter. Estimated hit on Jamaica. It's currently estimated between 11 a.m. and 8 p.m. tomorrow for the worst impacts. Before and after that, there will be impacts. They just won't be as significant as what 11 to 8 will be. Do I have an annual pass? I do. It's anti-cyclonic clockwise. Yes. That is what anti-cyclonic is. Aiden, that's just not true. I literally don't have free time. I go live all the time. It's not because of money. It's because I like doing this, and I like putting weather forecasts out there. I used to do this 4 years ago when I was making absolutely nothing, and I did it pretty much as consistently as I do now. So, I mean, I just love doing weather. I love talking about weather. I love doing these live streams and being able to help people. Nothing to do with money. What type of content is members only? Mostly just like it's non-weather related stuff for the most part. So if you're looking for weather content, that is always going to be on the main channel. I don't do members only weather forecasts. I might do a little bit of that, so like here and there, but like it's not like a big thing. It's like minimal. It's like it's basically sometimes if I do that, it's more detailed weather forecasts. It's not like anything beyond that though. It's not like I'm gonna make a paywall to like a hurricane like this and not have a forecast on the main channel. Like that's not what it is. Like sometimes I'll just go in more detail if I feel like it. But even then, I haven't done that in a while. The eye is closing. Not really. It's still not really there. I mean, the eye wall still looks pretty healthy. It's not as healthy as it was yesterday, but it's still pretty healthy. I'm a bit more concerned, though, about Jamaica when it comes to flooding because of all this rain that's falling everywhere in here. All that dark red and red is a lot of just rain right now. Do hurricanes always rotate in the same direction? It depends on what hemisphere you're on. That's really the biggest difference. Do you think the storm will devastate Jamaica? I don't know if it's gonna. I don't think it's gonna devastate Jamaica as much as Carriacou was back over in the Lesser Antilles. But I do think this will be very close to it. But it's a little bit different. It's not much of a difference, but it's a little bit different because the wind damage will be slightly less than what we saw in the Lesser Antilles. And it will also be more of just a storm surge and flooding threat. So it's a little bit different from before. No problem, Chip Queen. I'm glad I can help. How do you see tornadoes in a hurricane? I mean, you have to look at reflectivity. You can't determine a tornado from here. You probably actually, believe it or not, there was a satellite confirmed tornado. I've never seen that before. There was a satellite confirmed tornado somewhere in the United States. I doubt you can see something like that out here on radar, but like legitimately any of this could be waterspouts offshore just south of Haiti and Dominican Republic. But you need to look at reflectivity and velocities and all that to really determine that. So yeah, you really can't see that on this. At least it's at least very difficult to tell if there's a tornado with any of that. If you go back to my Hurricane Ian coverage a couple years ago, we covered a few tornadoes that happened in Florida, or I think we did at least, and that gives you a pretty good indication of how to determine tornadoes in a hurricane. But it's not really any different from like a normal severe weather event, to be honest. How's it going, 1920s? Welcome back. I haven't seen you in a while. Why can't you see velocity in a hurricane? Well, because we don't have any radar sites out here. I don't think Haiti or the Dominican Republic have any radar site. Jamaica might have a local weather service, but I'm not sure. I mean, we have one radar. It's out here in Puerto Rico. The problem is Puerto Rico, we don't have anything happening there, which isn't a problem, but the problem is the radar site isn't the place that you need it to be. So, I mean, there's a radar site here, but this is not even really where the hurricane is anymore. Is the red bad? It just indicates cold cloud tops aloft. Usually heavier rain is in that. With a hurricane, the heaviest of the rain will be in the darker reds, or even blacks. So any of this is usually heavier rain, which is where the flooding threat will be the greatest. Thank you, Janny, for the $20 super chat. Appreciate the generosity. I highly doubt I'm ever going to get there, but I do appreciate the generosity. It's crazy to even have as many subscribers as we have. It's been an absolutely crazy ride. I appreciate the generosity, and thank you. Thank you, Craig, for the $5 super chat. What are the odds of this growing when it leaves Mexico and heads towards Texas? I mean, it just depends on the track. It really has to do more with that, because if this goes down here, I don't think it's going to grow much. If it goes on the most easterly path of this cone of uncertainty, that has the greatest chance of intensifying with rapid intensification, and it also has the greatest chance of actually becoming something that would be potentially catastrophic. I'm not saying it will be, but if it took the most easterly path and it slowed down, it has more opportunity to rapidly intensify. It's not set in stone, though. Even if it took that path, it's not guaranteed this will rapidly intensify. So just keep that in mind. It's a possibility, but it's not a guarantee. I still think the more likely scenario right now is that this makes landfall in either South Texas or very far northern Mexico. We could see a landfall near Houston. I still would not rule out a landfall near Louisiana. It's a low chance at this point. Now, again, if you want more details on the probabilities of all of this, I recommend that you go back to the very beginning of today's live stream, or you watch my video from today on all those details. And we'll also have a video tomorrow morning breaking all this down again for you in some detail to give you an idea of what to expect and what the scenarios are. Thank you, Crazy Dallas, for the 1-month membership. Appreciate that. I appreciate that. Have a great 4th of July, by the way. Everybody that's in the United States that's watching, happy 4th of July, and I hope you have a safe one, and have a great 4th of July, and maybe see some fireworks, and hopefully no crazy weather in your area. What are the buoys? These are actual buoys. This buoy over here was inside of the hurricane. You actually can see it. This is the other day, but this is inside the hurricane Beryl. You can see how high the waves were, but the buoy has gone out. It's lost power or signal or something like that. You can actually see how high the waves were. It's hard to see, but that's on the outskirts of that hurricane, and I think it died after that. We have a buoy out here too, but it's just pitch black because it's nighttime, which is really weird because this is a photo that it takes, but you can't see a single thing. Like, imagine if you were there in that buoy. I would be scared. Like, that would be just scary, being in the middle of the ocean like that. But there's another buoy coming up just east of Cancun when this hurricane gets closer to that. There's also another one here in the southwestern Gulf of Mexico. So there are some buoys along the way. This is for the closest one, but like it's kind of out of the way. The waves will be higher here, but like we're not going to see anything tonight. Maybe tomorrow. That'd be about it. Yeah, it's dark. It is definitely dark. Was the storm you covered a couple days ago to Raid Show? I don't think so. I didn't hear anything about it, so I'm pretty sure it wasn't. By the way, if you are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe. Again, we'll keep you posted with the latest with Hurricane Beryl coverage. And again, I highly recommend, if you need some more information about Hurricane Beryl, after the stream is over, watch our video today, or just watch the first 15 minutes of today's live stream. We went into full detail about Hurricane Beryl. And again, we'll keep posted with the latest over the next few days with some updates. Most updates from here on out, for at least from now until Friday, will be just straight up videos. So we will have video updates on the main channel, and then we might have a live stream tomorrow, but I'm not going to be live on the 4th of July. And the 5th of July, I don't know if I'll be live for either, or live on. But at the bare minimum, we'll at least have videos that'll give you ideas of what's happening. Max, why are you disabled? I'm not I'm not disabled. When I say when I was talking about the handicap, that's golf handicap. It's different. I know why he said that, so. I understand why that was said. Yeah, the golf handicap, not... Somebody asked me about golf handicap. I do not need money for groceries. Okay, this conversation has to stop. I do not need money for groceries. Please. I mean, you know, I had a post earlier. I'm gonna show you guys real quick. You guys might get a kick out of this. This is a post I had earlier on Twitter. By the way, thank you, Lindsay, for becoming a member, and welcome to the Velocities. If you don't follow me on Twitter, you probably didn't see this. This was a few hours ago. Hurricane Beryl is on a weakening trend. My eye is beginning to look a lot less organized. Autocorrect came right into play. My eye is beginning to look a lot less organized. And well, if it was your eye, we would have some issues. I don't know why autocorrect has to exist in some cases. I was meant to say the eye, not my eye. So yeah, my eyes are not disorganized. Just letting you know. In case you were wondering. If Florida ruled out of the equation as of today, yeah, I mean it's a very tiny chance. I highly doubt Florida gets hit by this. Like if it gets hit, I'd be absolutely shocked. I don't think Florida gets hit by this hurricane at all to any extent. Hey Smith for the 199. I don't really know. I would probably have to say Greenfield though. Greenfield, Iowa, probably. Thank you, Nick, for the $5 super chat. No problem. Yeah, Belize should be okay. I think Belize is just a little bit further down to the south to hopefully miss the worst of this hurricane. So, I'm not too concerned right now about that area at this point. Alright. Well, we've gotten a good 2-hour coverage here. Thank you, Samurai, for the 199. That's fantastic. I disagree entirely. But we've answered a lot of questions in this live stream, so I think we've gotten at least a lot of the word out here. Hopefully everybody is able to use this information and being able to, you know, hopefully be able to prepare for this hurricane. And again, we'll continue to have videos and live streams over the next several days. I don't know if I'll be live tomorrow, but I'll at least have videos every day, probably for the next several days about Hurricane Beryl. So I highly recommend at least subscribing to the channel if you're new here, so you get the latest details on that. But again, that's going to be it for today's stream. If you have any questions, if you need a live stream forecast, go to the very beginning of this live stream. You don't have to leave the live stream. Just go back to the very beginning of the live stream. I talk about the entire hurricane for the first 15 minutes. If you have questions after that, you can feel free to comment. I'll try to get back to a few of them after the stream. But overall, again, the main concern right now is going to be Jamaica tomorrow. And then after that, Cayman Islands. And then the Yucatan Peninsula. And then possibly Texas, Mexico, or Louisiana. That remains, again, very uncertain at this point. Thank you, Blake, for the 1999 super chat. I'm glad I can help, and thank you for the generous 1999. I do appreciate that. But, yeah, that's going to do it for today's live stream. Again, I do appreciate you guys all tuning in. Thank you to anybody that super chatted or became a member. By no means is that required, by the way, so I really do appreciate your generosity. And, again, I really do appreciate you guys tuning in. Thanks for watching. Stay safe, please, if you're in Jamaica. If I'm not live tomorrow, just make sure to stay safe. And, again, make sure all those precautions are taken tonight. And we'll have a video tomorrow morning, probably bright and early at like 6 or 7 a.m. Jamaica, by the way, just announced an island-wide curfew from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. tomorrow. So just a heads up if you're in Jamaica. Just came out. A curfew for the entire island for 12 hours. All right. Appreciate you guys all tuning in. Stay safe if you're in Jamaica and the Cayman Islands. I will, if I'm not live tomorrow, the next live stream will probably be Friday or Saturday. So that's the next time to expect one. So stay tuned to the channel. like the stream, subscribe, and we'll see you guys all again in the next one. Thanks for watching. Have a great rest of your night.